What's going on, family? It's your brother Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, back in the building for another test run. You see, I keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until we get this audio and video perfection and enhance the quality of KHM on your TV screens, on your mobile screens, and on your PC and laptop screens. All praise to the Most High. So this is the test session. It's not official anyway. We are now officially able to stream in 4K. I'm using the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. And then also we are using this Rode NT USB mini studio mic. So I want to test the audio and the quality. I'm looking on the screen right now. It looks like there may be some stuttering in regards to the video because now we're streaming in high def. We're talking about 4K high def. So if the audio and video is looking good, sounding good, hit 1. If it's looking good and sounding good, hit 1. If you do notice any artifacting, if you do notice any stuttering, if you do notice any drop frames, or if you do notice that the audio and video is out of sync, let me know. But I really need your assistance. So this video is not official anyway. I'm just freestyling right now so we can test out the audio and video quality and get ready for this Friday. Yah willing, we were having that discussion debate on, is Yahweh Inky and does Christianity come from the Nomos, from the doggone tribes theology? Interesting stuff. But also there's a lot of discussion now in the Israelite camp movement. So that's the camp movement. You have the moderates, and then you have the liberals, right? Liberals are more like Christian Israelites, and the moderates are like me, which is really on a middle ground, and kind of is not really extreme, not really liberal, but right in the middle ground. And then you have the conservative, which are mostly our ultra Orthodox camp Israelites, right? So, and on that side of the fence, brothers are now in an uproar over this John 1:1. And I'm going to give you some insight on that in a moment. Let me give you some insight on it. Again, this is just to test the audio and video. Again, to me, it looks like there's some video issues. I don't know. It looks like there's some stuttering in the video, hiccuping. I don't know. Does the image look good? Everybody's throwing 1 in the chat. So I'm assuming everything is good. This, by the way, this DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is a phenomenal camera. Like really phenomenal camera. The picture quality is outstanding for what it is. I was not expecting this degree of quality from this small camcorder, this vlogging camcorder, but it is outstanding. So much so that it is actually persuading me to create more content. So I did a couple of test runs already on some content I want to bring up. There's also a Sabbath lesson I want to complete before Friday. And it's very interesting. It's don't let them make you disappear. So pretty much the premise is there's some people out there that see your potential, that see your greatness, see the gift and the skills that can only be divinely attributed to you. And they don't want you to shine because they have a preference who they want to shine. They have a preference of somebody that they want to be in the spotlight. They have a preference of somebody that they favor. So what they're going to do in the process is make you look invisible. So you don't get that promotion. You don't get that recognition. You don't get the acknowledgement. And you don't get the spotlight to do what you was created to do. So they try to throw shade and keep you in the shadows. So that way you won't do what Yah's called you to do. Whether that's for you to be the best you can be on your job, amongst your family, amongst your friends, amongst your associates, amongst your congregation, whatever it may be. There are people out there who purposely see your purpose, purposely see your gifts and your skills, and their objective is to keep you invisible. When candidates are mentioned, family members are mentioned, anybody's mentioned, there's a preferred individuals whose names come up. But yet you're the one who has been praying to Yah, worshiping Yah, reading your word, keeping these commandments, following after the words and the teachings of Yeshua. You're the one who has been consistent. You're the one who, because of what's on you, Yah put on you, it pulls out something negative in them because they don't have the it factor. You do. And they acknowledge that. But they are fearful that if you get the spotlight, those who they preferred will be diminished. And sometimes they must be rightfully so because they're not the one to be called for that assignment. That's you. So the example I'm going to use in regards to this is Jesse and David. And when Samuel came to Jesse to anoint who Yah had told him to anoint to be the next king of Israel, Jesse shadowed David, sent him away, made him tend sheep on purpose so he wouldn't be available for Samuel to anoint him or being a candidate for Samuel to anoint. They didn't think that he had it. They didn't think he was tall enough. They didn't think he was strong enough. They didn't think he was courageous enough. So they shadowed him. And it's going to be some point in time where all those potential candidates are just not what the individual or the audience or whoever the person is looking for. They're looking for somebody that has more character. And that someone is you. But sometimes you're sent on side missions so you can be shadowed and not acknowledged. Anyway, so let's shift from that. Shift from that. I'm going to turn that into an official lesson. Hopefully y'all enjoy it. So with that being said, again, this is just a test. We're shooting live in 4K now. We have this new mic. Now, again, I'm going to be quiet. Let me know if you hear ambient sound. Let me know if the mic is picking up ambient sound. Let me know. Saying it's good? Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll be here just for a little bit because I got stuff to do. I got work that I didn't get to finish for my day job. So I gotta do that. I just sold some electronic products for about $2,400-$2,500. So I gotta pack that up and get that out. You know what I'm saying? Because I get it cheap. I get items either for free, discounted, or whatever, and then I put them out for sale as a side hustle, right? So I move electronics in my house, come in and move out on the daily. You know what I'm saying? And if anybody out there is interested in any products, let me know. I'll either give it to you for free or at an extremely heavy discount because I have so much stuff. I got monitors lying around, keyboards, mice lying around. I have all types of electronic stuff because I work in IT and I'm a tech enthusiast. So, you know, if anybody's in need of anything, just hit us up in Kingdom Harbinger at gmail.com. A lot of stuff is for donation for free. You just pay the shipping and we'll get it out to you. And that's it. You know, I'm trying to really streamline my inventory so that way I have more room in my office because you don't see, but I got a whole bunch of other stuff here, there, and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so if anybody's interested or needs anything computing wise, electronics wise, just let me know. All right. We got phones too. We got all that. Just let me know. All right. All right. Man, that is a good question. I don't know. I definitely need more. I'll tell you that. I definitely need more. So the camera's right here in front of me, but the screen is up here. So if you see me looking away from you, it's because I'm looking at the screen. But sometimes I'll go and I'll zero on the camera, especially when I want to bring forth an emphatic point. But yes, that's a good question. When do I get sleep? I don't get much sleep. Sometimes my body's like, yo, you're going to sleep. And I'll pass out. But for the most part, because I do so much, you know what I'm saying? Like I work multiple contract roles because I'm a contractor and I reach out to businesses and, you know, I pitch and offer my services and they say, okay, yeah, we want you to bring you on board, set up a contract. So I got multiple contracts doing that. And then, you know, I have a tech channel too. So I move electronics in and out, review stuff. I do all of that. Then, you know, I got a family, then I got a ministry. So, you know, there's a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? Now I got work. So if anybody's out there, you need part-time work or whatever the case may be, I mean, I'm willing to hire. You know what I'm saying? I got a lot of little projects and stuff I got going on personally, business-wise, or whatever. So if anybody's out there and you're interested in making some money, you know, side hustle, a little bit of bread, you know what I'm saying? We got services we offer through the ministry, and then I got side services as well. So just let me know. All right. All right. Israelite Defense. No, we don't have a street ministry channel. That's a good question. I do have videos on here of us hitting the streets on several occasions. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was me solo or it was me with KHM. So we have some of those videos on here. But if you prefer a separate channel where we're hitting the streets in the community, you know, pushing the word, pushing our services, doing our activism work. If y'all are interested in a separate channel for that, then I can probably put that up if y'all are interested in that. You know what I'm saying? Just let me know. All right. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to address this thing real quick. I'm going to tell you this. And again, this video is not going to stay up, right? So I'm going to make this video is going to be unlisted. Okay. So I'm saying that right now because this is not my official statement yet, but because it's late at night, I'm just testing this. I'm just going to share it anyway. So those of you who was able to sign on, you're going to get a glimpse of this before it comes out officially. Okay. Yeah. So DJ, yes. So I am into tech. I'm in the IT field. Currently I work in the hospitality industry, doing back-end IT work. So pretty much I handle APIs, I handle architecture, I handle configuration modules, I do integrations. So I do all that stuff on the back end, you know what I'm saying? And then I provide like level 4, level 5 support, almost level 5, because I act as a vendor sometimes. So I provide that type of work as well. So I do a lot on the back end. So it's been years since I worked on the front end. So I typically do back end configuration, integrations, APIs, etc. So if you're interested in getting into the IT field, let me know. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 23. So I've been in IT for about 19 years. So I've been in IT for a long time, for about 19 years, I believe. About 19 years, almost 20 years, almost 2 decades I've been in IT. So it was a really tumultuous journey to get to where I'm at currently. And it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but I'm here. You know what I mean? So all praise to the Most High. So I'm here. If brothers want it, if you're interested in IT, on our One Church channel that we use for our KHM members, we have a group set aside for IT. So if anybody's interested in joining that group, I'm gonna share the link here. So what we do is, you know, we're trying to gather those in the Israelite community that is into tech, and pretty much give them an outlet to discuss all things tech, whether it's work, whether it's ideas, whether it's something we can implement in regards to the ministry, whether it's whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna share that link. Just click the link, sign up for it, and let me grab it real quick. All right, let me drop it in the chat. There it is. All right. So for the record, I don't have any degrees in tech, right? The degrees that I have or that I've accomplished is in a totally different field, right? It's in forensic psychology. And then I got a certificate from City College for music theory and composition. And this was a long time ago. So the way I got into tech is because I was a tech enthusiast in my late teens. I think maybe 18, 19. I started getting into tech and I love computers and everything like that. And then from there, I started like buying computers, taking them apart, learning what each of the parts do and stuff like that. And then I worked a couple of jobs. I worked like at Macy's at one time. I worked at UPS, but I've been working since I was 13. So I've been working almost 30 years of my life. You know what I'm saying? So when I was 13, I was doing summer jobs through all my teenage years. And when I was 18, that's when I got a full-time job and 19 full-time job. Now, the reason why I got those full-time jobs at 18, 19, 20, and up to 21, I think, before I started going to college, maybe 17, from 17 on, it's because I was hustling. So I needed an alibi, right? I needed a cover. So I said, okay, look, I'm going to get a part-time or full-time job. I'm going to work it. So at any time, I can use my coworkers and my job as an alibi if anything happens. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really want to get into detail in regards to that. Maybe I might share a story on Patreon only one day. But when I was really young, I got from 13 to 17, it was all summer youth jobs and stuff like that. I worked in the summer. But when I turned 17, I started working a full-time job, 17, 18, 19, 20. But then I was hustling at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Because one of the old heads that I was hanging out with or whatever said, look, you always need a cover. You always need an alibi. Because if you doing this line of work, which again, I had no business doing, but the reason why I started hanging out with the wrong crowd is because my parents was in the midst of a separation, and that troubled me and my brother. I was 16 when that started. He was 15. And then from there, I would, because up to that point, I was like an A student and, didn't really get into trouble or nothing like that. I was raised in a lower middle class community. So it was like maybe a couple rungs short of being in the hood in the projects, you know what I'm saying? But we were surrounded by projects where we lived. So all the kids from the projects would come over to us and we would go over to them, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, and it's crazy because I actually have a childhood friend that's in the chat. That's crazy. But my mom used to take me more to the church, you know what I'm saying? Because she, that was the rule in her house. So she wanted to take us to church. She took us to church. So we went to church. When I was a teenager, I really didn't want to go to church at all, but I went because, if I was staying with my mom didn't play. That's what she required if he was going to stay with her. So that's why me and my brother kept finding a way to leave the home, you know what I'm saying, and do something else because we didn't want to stay there because we had to go to church. But we met a couple of good people in the process there, you know what I'm saying, to have good relationships with today. And being a part of the church when I got older and made a conscious decision when I was living on my own to actually go back to church, independent of my mom or my dad or my family or whatever. I went back to that church, and that church was Morningstar Full Gospel Assembly. And interestingly enough, somebody's in the chat that went to the same church as me. I have a history with that person. It's very interesting, man. I'm not gonna say who it is. If she wants to put it out there, she could put it out there. But anyway, so so it's very interesting. So I was working, doing jobs that was non-IT related, and then I started my first IT job. I worked for customers. I did customer service for voice over IP and broadband support for Time Warner Cable. That was my first IT job. It was more customer service oriented, but I had to learn the product, right? So it was a voice over IP modem, telephony modem that we were supporting, and the broadband modem, right, for internet gateway support, stuff like that. So that's how I got into it, because I had other jobs where I did, customer support that was unrelated to anything IT. That was my first IT job. And then I worked from there, and I just went to a whole different slew of different roles from there. I did go to get like my A+, my Net Plus and stuff like that. So I got a couple of certifications. Then I got custom certifications like Oracle certifications and stuff like that. And the way I got the Oracle certification is because I worked for a contractor, and the contractor contracted me out to Oracle, and Oracle gave me access to their database of training. And these are courses that people pay thousands of dollars to take, and I got them all for free. So I took advantage of that, and I said, oh, shoot. And that's what I always do. Any company I go to, I ask them, hey, is there any e-learning courses, any certificate courses that the company offers, right, for employees? I always ask that. And then from there, I just take whatever courses I could get my hands on. So I got all of these customized certificates for different applications and different processes and stuff like that. And then what I would do at the jobs that I worked at is if I saw a role that I liked, like when I was doing NOC type work, networking or whatever, what I would do is I would find people that worked in those roles. So I would use like Teams, or I would use Outlook or whatever. And in Teams or Outlook, you can go and search people's profiles. to see what their face looks like, their name is, and the department they're in. So what I would typically do is if I see them or whatever, I would bump into them in an elevator, or I bump into them going to lunch, and then I would start up a random conversation with them. So, oh, you're so and so from so and so department, right? Yeah, yo. I know, my department is a stakeholder in some things that you do, blah blah. So I run a little game, talking to them, and they're like, all right, cool, while we walking out, say, hey, yo, I have a couple questions to ask you. I'm pretty new around here. Would you be okay with me, going in and getting us lunch so we could sit down, kind of chop it up? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And that's what I would do. I would chop it up with people in the department that I wanted to be in. And then I will also, from there, do the same offer for managers of other departments, directors of other departments, even VPs of other departments. Strike up a small convo and then offer to pay for lunch for free. One time I just bought a whole bunch of lunch and I just invited whoever wanted to come. And now we had a situation where they're letting their hair down. I start the conversation off with relatable things, talking about family, talking about, career, talking about, things that we want to achieve. And, what do you like to do? Hobbies and interests, all that basic stuff. And then I'll use that platform and then I work it into. So at this role, what made you come to this company, and, what type of work do you do, and ask those questions, and then again get free game because they're letting their hair down, it's a free meal. You bought the meal, so they're gonna be courteous and they're gonna spill their guts, and I pick up game. Oh wow, so you do so and so. Okay, so if I wanted to get access to this, how would I go about it, or what reference would I go to kind of learn how to do this? And they would just drop gems. Like, oh, I learned that from being around elders, man. I learned that from being around elders. Soak in game. Pick up these gems that they're dropping. Because what I used to do when I was younger is I used to be around old heads. It's not like I had peers around, but I would be around the old heads and I would learn game. I would learn from their experience. I would learn from things they share me, the tips they would give me, the direction they would put me in. So I would pick that up. So I learned at a young age. So I said, look, when I go into this career path, I'm gonna do the same thing. And I just transmuted that energy from, personal to professional. So that helped me in a lot of times when they was about to end my contract on 2 occasions. Because I did what I told you I did, a director from another department hired me when my contract was up. I made a call, told them the situation. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We got a vacancy, and brought me over there. On 2 different occasions, I reached out to the director and they hired me. Or they say, hey, we got an open contract, we'll pull you over here. Just because I took the time to chat with them, I showed interest in their personal life. I praised them for their endurance and working in the business and contributing to the company culture and, their approach to the work. Gave them some lunch on top of that and built a relationship from doing that. So I'm just giving y'all free game, right? If you're somewhere that you're working and there are people who are more talented than you, who are smarter than you, who you see advancing higher than you, all right, you can achieve that too. But I'm all about working smart and not working hard. Working hard is fine. If you want to work hard and break your back and kill yourself, listen, you can still be successful going that route. But when you work smart, you save time. Time is a precious commodity that you can never get back. So make sure the efforts that you're investing into whatever you choose to do is not over consuming time, because you can never get time back. So if you can find a way to get from A to Z with a direct straight line, which is always the closest path and the path has less friction, less resistance, then that's the best route to go, because that's how you save time. That's how you improve your efficiency, so you can then be proficient. So take that game wherever you at, find out who's the best of the best, strike up a conversation. So, oh yeah, I heard that you worked in so-and-so department and you was doing A, B, and C. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't mind, man, I was just, I'm new. I would just like to kind of get my bearing. Or you may not be new and just say, hey, I'm just trying to extend, my network of who works, you know, what department in the company, to try and learn some things. You know, I like to chat with you. If you have a moment, you know, I'll take care of lunch. If you don't mind, blah, blah, blah. Now, everybody may not accept that offer, but the ones that do are the ones that you can get whatever you need to get from them. All right. So, like I said, I didn't go to college for IT, but I just got a customer service job. I started from the bottom, getting paid $12 an hour. I think they was paying me at the time. And then now I get paid like $75, $80 an hour, whatever the case may be. So I went from that to that with no degree, right? Just straight up experience. So you can do it. Okay. And I'm here to give you that insight so I can help you cut the amount of time and effort to get to where you need to go. And it's just not just in this industry, because this is a very volatile industry. There's a lot of layoffs, especially if you got contract jobs. They can let you go anytime. The company may look at their fiscal year results and say, look, we don't have enough money to extend your contract. I got laid off. I got fired. You know, I quit jobs. I mean, I've been through the full gamut of whatever you can imagine that can happen. But I noticed that because the scripture says, acknowledge Yah in all your ways, and he will direct your paths. So no matter what I did, where I was at, I always put him first. I always acknowledge his presence in the midst of whatever I was going through. And some of those layoffs, me getting fired, me quitting, whatever, some of that had to do with me. So I owned up on my fault. Some of it had to do with the company, right? They never own up on their fault because they're never wrong, right? They're making these business decisions, is way above your pay grade, etc. But I said to myself, I said, look, what I'm going to do is give a moderate amount of effort in anything that I invest in as it pertains to my career, that I do to feed my family, because my main goal is to serve Yah, right? That's why I'm here with y'all. That's my main goal, is to serve Yah. So if my main goal is to serve Yah, everything else aside from family is secondary to that. You know what I'm saying? So I make sure I give just enough effort so that way I'm doing the best work that I can do, but not so much effort that I'm overextending myself, right? Unnecessarily, because that will take away from my livelihood, because I'm giving it all to a company that at any given time, they can just let me go, you know? And so you do the moderate amount of work, because you'll go to a job and you'll work and overextend yourself. You do free overtime for them. You'll pick up extra projects for them. And again, a lot of this stuff is not in your job description or whatever the case may be, but you're doing it because you want to make an indelible mark, right? You want to move up in the company, right? You want to be promoted. You want to advance. You want to get that bonus and that raise. All right. And if you want to do that, by all means. But what I've learned, this is just my experience, is that you can, like, I know a lot of people that put in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years at a company, and they just let them go. They fired them. They laid them off. They've overextended themselves. They got the promotion, the bonuses, and the company just let them go. Very heartbreaking. Just let them go. And when that happens, they go into this cycle of depression, anxiety, right? And then after that moment of shock is over, then reality sets in, like, okay, I got to go find another job. And it takes them sometimes 6 months, a year, 2 years to find another job. A lot of times they got to sell their house and they got to live with family. And it's all because they overextend themselves. So what I recommend is that you give the moderate amount of effort in any role you do. If Yah's first, he comes first. He's going to empower you. You acknowledge him in all the ways that you do. How? You take what's taught in scripture, transform it into a principle, and then you apply it to your life. Because everything you see in scripture that's a lesson can be a practical application in real life. And if you know how to do that, then you learn how to navigate things. There's a time and a season for everything. Timing and opportunity are the two things that when they mesh, you have the best chance. But a lot of people don't know the timing. They don't know the season or the opportunity, right? So what Yah does when we pray, you know, difference between what we do and what Christians do. When Christians pray and say, oh, please God, do this for you. Please God, do that. And throwing up Hail Marys. And then just wait to see what happens. Just looking around like this. All right, God, and anytime, God, something's going to fall down. Any given time, God. We don't work like that. When you pray, you are putting up an appeal because there's already a course that you're on. The course may have some roadblocks. They may have some checkpoints. They may have some pit stops. They may have some obstructions, damages in the road. So when you pray, you're putting up an appeal. You're acknowledging that you're inferior, that you have no control at all in your life. You're just a vessel for the Father to display his magnificence, his excellence, his brilliance, his majesty, his honor through. The scripture says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So when you empty yourself and allow him to fill you and say, yeah, I don't know what today's going to bring, but you're in the driver's seat. I don't even want to be in the passenger seat because I may want to take the wheel. I may see that you may be driving too fast. I'm like, oh, hold on, you got to chill. I may not feel you go in the right direction, Most High Yah. Sometimes you want to grab the wheel from him. You know, when people say Jesus grabbed the wheel, whenever they say Jesus take the wheel, that means they're in the driver's seat. That's the problem. When you tell Jesus to take the wheel, that means you are in the driver's seat, not him. That's the problem. When Yah is in the driver's seat, you get in the back seat. In the back seat, I can see what's going on. I'm able to give commentary and speak on things, but I'm not in a position where I am tempted to take the wheel from him. That I'm tempted to take control from him. Because I've been in situations where I said, I'm in the driver's seat. I got this. And I relegated him to a passenger. And he over here grabbing the wheel. I'm like, yo, get your hands off. I got this, man. Why are you touching the wheel? And then over time I learned, I said, okay. I thought the GPS I had was true. But sometimes, and you'll notice this for people who are real good drivers. I notice this for my brothers who are truck drivers that have years and years of experience. Right? I will be going somewhere. I'll throw in the GPS. Brother's like, nah, you don't need that, bro. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, yo, I got that. I know the roads, bro. I got this. So now I'm tempted to say, okay, so should I trust the GPS, which is not real, right? It's not feelings, emotions. It's not trying to think outside the box. It's designed to do, the algorithm's designed to do what you want it to do, right? But then I have somebody else, a friend of mine, who knows the roads because he transfers them all the time. And he's able to anticipate things that the GPS cannot. Even though the GPS pulls analytics and data from the cloud that it uses to predict routes, he knows at a certain time of the day, certain holidays, and or certain events that's going on, like a football game, something like that. He's like, look, we're going to take this route when we leave out. Don't listen to the GPS. Because even though the GPS may seem to take on a faster route, there's going to be some issues. So sometimes I realize that even though you got the GPS, you got everything planned the way you want it to, your steps are not properly being ordered. So I learned that, okay, I'm gonna put Yah in the passenger seat. He can go in the passenger seat. I'm assuming I'm gonna go in the passenger seat, not him. So I moved to the passenger seat. I let him. I said, I'm gonna let you rock, Yah, because this is a testament to see where you're at in life. Are you in the driver's seat, the passenger seat, or the back seat? Are you in the driver's seat, the passenger seat, or the back seat? And I'm going to tell you this. There's nothing wrong with being in the driver's seat. But that's only if Yah can trust you. You have to be tested by fire. You have to be honed. Your skill set has to be honed. Your awareness factor has to be honed. You have to be to a point that you are an empty vessel and you're like a child, a student driver, that you have the experienced driver right here in this seat and they're telling you what to do and you are just listening. You're obeying. So you're given that degree of control because you have been entrusted to lead. But sometimes you have not been entrusted to lead and you need to get to the passenger seat. Why? Because the passenger seat has an unobstructed view of what's going on. And at any time, they may be tempted If they can see something, drive me able to see to go and take control. Go say, hey, wait, don't do that. Oh, wait, you're going too fast. Oh, wait, I see the car come over in your blind spot. Because they don't have to focus on holding the wheel. They still want a little bit of control just in case. They could do something, but it's still limited. So I put y'all in the passenger seat. Say, y'all, put me in the passenger seat. It's all right, yeah, I'm gonna let you take control. But just in case I don't think it's going as the way it should go, I only want to grab the wheel a little bit. I may want to tap in your shoulder. Hey, what's going on? I may want to do that a little bit. And then after a point, I realized, like, oh, okay, I am interfering with y'all's plans. I'm interfering with it because I'm at a point where I yielded to him, but I still want some control. Sometimes it's okay to be in a passenger seat, depending on the situation. But I've gone to a state now that I prefer to be in the back seat. Because when you're in the back seat, you don't have a full view of everything that's going on in front of the driver. You are trusting the driver. I want to be so much in the back seat that I'm in a child seat, strapped in, where I can't even reach over to do anything. And just let him drive. So it all depends on where you're at in life. Are you in the driver's seat, the passenger seat, or the back seat? So it all depends where you're at right now. You can be in any one of those seats. So depending on the situation, when it comes to things that's going on in your life, like I said, you have to acknowledge y'all in all your ways. If you're in a situation that you know it can be volatile, it's uncertain, etc., you got to let y'all drive. And you got to get in the back seat. But sometimes he got to show you. So you got to get in the passenger seat. And sometimes he trusts you to take over and drive. We see plenty of examples of this in scripture. Remember, at the end of the day, he owns the car. So even though I'm the driver, title's in his name. Some of y'all get that. So anyway, so the point of what I'm trying to say is you have to learn that if you acknowledge Yah in all your ways and let him direct your paths, no matter what happens, he will take care of you. He will give you the wisdom to know how to navigate through any uncertain situation. And if you've wholly devoted yourself over to him and you obey everything he says, it's with Caleb and Josh, we've obeyed wholly everything that he has told me to do. Wholly. That don't mean you're perfect, but it means whatever he gave you to do, you've committed yourself to it. Then he's going to say, now I'm going to give you a portion of land. You get to pick what portion of land you want. Caleb was like, yo, y'all promised me that if I wholly obeyed him, that I get to pick what I want. See, that's the only time that you're qualified to pick what you want, when you wholly obey. But if you're not wholly obeying and you just want to do whatever you want to do, you're going to see the turmoil's going to happen. So when you pray, you're putting up an appeal and say, yeah, this is the course. But what I'm doing is I'm forsaking my will and I'm yielding to yours. I know that I may have made mistakes that put me on this course. I know that it may have been family, friends, my job, whoever that may have put me on this course. But in the process of it, I'm going to acknowledge you in everything that goes down in this course. I'm going to take ownership of any of the errors or mistakes or issues that I may have contributed to it, because it's a life learning lesson for me. But at the end of the day, y'all, I'm giving you an appeal so that way you can set up the timing and the opportunity. It's really timing and chance creates opportunity. And when I see it, I act. I don't wait for you to move on people, do this and do that. Nah, once the timing is there, once the opportunity is there, then I move. It's motion. Prayer is motion. You're motioning for the judge to do something on your behalf. That's what your appeal is at. Because the previous decision is going against what you need to do, what you want to do. The previous decision, whatever put you on that route. And your prayer for appeal is that, yeah, these obstructions, these roadblocks, these pitfalls, whatever the case may be, please fill them, please move them, or teach me how to navigate around them. See, the best prayers you pray is when you tell Yah, don't remove anything. Keep everything there. Keep the hardships, keep the difficulties, keep the challenges, keep the times of hurt, times of pain, good times, high times. Keep everything there. Just teach me how to navigate. Because sometimes you can't clear the route. Sometimes you can't terraform the territory. And you want Yah to do all this miraculous stuff for you. Why? He created that territory for a reason. Yeshua prayed, I do not pray that you take them out of the world. John 17. I don't pray for you to take them out of the world. Meaning that there's persecution, all that going on. Don't take them out of the world. Bring them through it. Okay. So GMO, Yashar, Banyamyan, I actually did a video when I was in Houston. It's on this channel, where I talk about the image of God. I actually had a lecture that I was going to do on it. Might still do it. But I did a video when I was in Houston. I was taken to this congregation in Houston, and I did a freestyle sermon or whatever you want to call it. And I talked about the image. Who do you see in the mirror? Who do you see when you look in the mirror? Do you see yourself or do you see Yah? Do we see Yah in the mirror when we look in the mirror? If he created us in his image and his likeness, very important. Yes, we do Israelites defense. If he was created in his image and his likeness, then why don't we see him when we look in the mirror? Why are we seeing ourselves? Why are we seeing our imperfections? Why are we seeing scars that remind us of things from the past? We see all these things about self, but we don't see things of the one we've made in the image of. Go back and check out that lecture I did. It's on the YouTube channel. Okay. All right, so let me transition from that. Let me see what time it is because I have a lot to do. It's 12:15. All right. So we'll stay on here another 15 minutes. All right. No, we don't have nobody in San Antonio. We have brothers in Houston. We have brothers in Dallas. But we don't have nobody in San Antonio. If that's what you're at and you're interested, just email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We can probably try and coordinate something for you. All right. So just email us, brother. Okay. All right. So I just dropped a lot of Jews, share information because I think that one aspect of our community that is missing is the practical element of life. How to take the deep things of Yah and make it practical. And what I've noticed in my years of studying the Tanakh, there's a lot of deep information. There's a lot of deep information in the Torah. But the Torah is simplified for the layman via the book of Proverbs. Proverbs simplifies the Torah. It gives you practical application of Torah. When you understand and you study the book of Proverbs, it simplifies Torah. It shows you the practical application of Torah. It is the embodiment and expression of Hokmah, or wisdom. Okay. All right. So let me get into this real quick. I'm going to give you a snippet of this, right? We got 1 hour. I'm going to cut off. So we got about less than 60 minutes, right? So recently, in the Israelite camp movement, or those brothers, right? There's been this stirring of the pot in regards to the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, right? Or Yahweh Shai, or Yeshua Bar Yosef, or Yahushua, right? And this revealed a lot of stuff that I knew and didn't know. But I'm going to kick it off like this. I'm going to tell you how this all started, right? So I put up a video that y'all most of you probably saw. If you didn't see it, go back and see it. I had a debate with a brother named Jada Smoke. This was February 2024. This was a year ago, okay? I had a debate with his brother. And the debate was, did Jesus Christ pre-exist? That was the debate. Did Jesus Christ pre-exist? Jada Smoke he's not really much of a contender. I'll say that, right? He's dogmatic, and he's not really well studied holistically when it comes to scripture, right? So in that debate, unfortunately, I didn't take it that seriously. I started off my introductory round with a rap, and then I ended it with a eulogy. Because so I didn't pick on this person. This person called me out for a debate. I was minding my business. He called me out for a debate. I'm like, okay, you want a debate? Like, what you want to debate? The debate was, I guess, part of the Clubhouse discussion about the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, which I don't subscribe to. I don't subscribe to the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai, Yeshua, whatever you want to call him. I don't subscribe to that. I've been teaching this since 2015. So I've been teaching this for 10 years that I don't subscribe to the pre-existence of Yeshua. I don't subscribe to the pre-existence of Yeshua. I hold the historical position of the Jewish Christians of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century. And that is, all of them, I can say all of them, I said a majority of them believe that Yeshua's existence, his ontology, came about through the union of Joseph and Mary. And their union birthed him. Now, there were some groups among the Ebionites who did subscribe to a virgin birth according to a patristic source, but they were the minority amongst the group. The majority of them believed that Yeshua came into existence, like all men, through the union of both his parents. We have no record of any Jewish Christians, where again, most of the sources from Jewish Christians we have is from the patristic sources of church fathers, that state that any of the groups, even the few that believed in virgin birth, believed in the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. What I did for y'all as well, I made a blog on Patreon. So sign up for Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Okay. I set up on Patreon a post where I'm dealing with that. And I'm speaking about that. Where there is a dialogue between Justin Martyr and Trypho the Jew. And Trypho the Jew questions the validity of the virgin birth of Yeshua and give his example for it, saying that if one subscribes to that, is akin to believing in Greek mythos, right? That post is on there. You can check it out. So the point that I'm making is those Jews, where some of them were followers of Yeshua directly, some of them were followers of the disciples turned apostles directly, were what we see, especially the ones in Jerusalem with James the Just, the OG of the entire body of the Mashiach, was the OG James, who made Paul submit. You know, Paul withstood Peter to his face, but he fell back when James was on the scene. He knew what time it was. That's Jesus' brother. That's the OG. In Acts 21, you seen brothers that were believers and zealous for the law. Nowhere in the entire book of Acts do we have any mention of a pre-existence of Jesus Christ. Nowhere in Acts. And the Epistle of James, one of the earliest books of the New Testament, we have no reference to a pre-existence. In Paul's epistles, we have no reference to a pre-existence. But oh no, yes we do. Philippians chapter 2 verse. It's not there. The main scholar that I go to is not the only one. The main scholar I go to demonstrate this is James Dunn. He has a book called Christology in the Making, and it deals with the incarnation theology. Now, this guy is an Orthodox Christian. But his point was, or his premise was that the only place that may allude to a pre-existence is the book of John. And that's in the prologue of John. None of Paul's epistles, none of the general epistles, not the book of Acts, none of them. Matthew don't teach a pre-existence. Luke don't teach a pre-existence. Mark don't teach a pre-existence. So the virgin birth is one thing. Pre-existence is another thing. So when I had this debate with Jada Smoke, and we debated on the pre-existence, I outrightly said, I don't subscribe to that. Because my pedigree has to go back to those earliest Jews who started the movement that then was co-opted by Gentiles and turned into Christianity. And then Christianity brought in all of these ex-pagans, these ex-philosophers, these ex-priests. Tertullian was an ex-priest of some other order. And they're bringing all of their ideologies with them into the movement and disseminated into the movement. And it was so bad to the point where when they talk about these early Jews who, helped to start this movement and bring this knowledge to those so-called Gentiles, they said they were poor in their understanding of Yeshua. But yet they're ex-pagans, and yet they were raised in the same culture, same community that Yeshua was, around the same apostles that was his disciples, saying that they have a poor understanding. Y'all let me know, by the way. Let me know if the audio and video is good. It looks a little choppy on my end, but I don't know. You got to let me know if it looks good, if it looks bad. If it looks bad, then I won't do it in 4K. Let me know how the audio is. Is the audio good, etc.? Supposed to be a pop filter in there, so it should cut down the plosives. So we shouldn't hear too much fluctuation in tone. But anyway, so let me know. 1 is good, 2 is bad. Make sure you put that in the chat as I'm talking and as we're having a discussion. So after this debate with Jada Smoke, and I put on, again, the best way to defeat the pre-existence argument is several-fold. First thing is, it's the first one, is the concept of the first Adam and last Adam. When you understand this idea of the first Adam and last Adam, which I brought out a little bit in the debate, I didn't really get to flesh it out like I wanted to. I had written, I think, like 10, 12 pages of notes and information I wanted to go over in the debate, but the debate doesn't really afford the time for that. So at some point, I'm going to present it on here. But once you understand that concept of the first Adam and last Adam, you know that the last Adam had to be made in the similar likeness to the first Adam. The first Adam was not pre-existence. Now, aside from what you get from Jewish mysticism, from Kabbalahs, or people deal with Kabbalah, or the Kabbalists, or whatever the case may be, they teach a more mystified version of scriptures. They try to teach you the Sud level, the Sod or Sud level of understanding, which is in their Pardes method of interpretation. You have your Peshat, you have your Resh, you have your Darash, and then you have your Sud. All of that is stuff that was added much later. Those levels of interpretation, they don't go back to the Iron Age. Gematria, which is a Greek term, by the way. I'll say it again. Gematria, which is a Greek term, by the way. The first Gematrius who was in the Near East was an Assyrian king. That's the origins of Gematria. Don't go back to Moses. This idea of Kabbalah does not go back to Moses. And I'm saying all this is for a reason. The reason why I'm saying this is because people who practice Kabbalah, they teach the incarnation of souls. That souls were from this spark by the Ein Sof. They're from the spark. And then that spark, you pre-exist, and then you go into flesh. So someone who subscribes to that can easily subscribe to the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. But if you know that he had to be made in the likeness of the first Adam to undo the works of the first Adam, then he cannot pre-exist. Because if he pre-exists, then it defeats the purpose of him being called the last Adam, because the first Adam did not pre-exist. That's the first thing. Some of those things I used on Jay. And that debate, what I was pretty much doing was taking all of the potential scriptures that would be used to say that Jesus Christ pre-existed. I went to John 17:5. I went to Philippians 2:5. I went to Colossians 1:16, Colossians 1:21, because people use that all the time. And then they go to John all the time. John chapter 1, verses 1-18, which is the prologue, which is not part of the narrative, which has figurative language, which has personification in there, which has anthropomorphism in there. And the idea of the Logos is not a Christian concept. It's not a messianic concept. It is a Greek concept that was inseminated into Jews by means of Hellenism. And all the author of John chapter 1 did was ascribe the idea of the Logos, the way that is aptly understood in the Hellenistic world, ascribed it to Yah, and said that that same Logos, the thought, the reason, the mind, the instrument of Yah, not a distinct person, not a pre-existent person, was placed in his last prophet, which was Yeshua Bar Yosef. Hebrews chapter 1 tells us this. The Logos of Yah merged and became one with that flesh. The thought, the reason, the mind. That's why the text says, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. The mind, what is that mind, that noia? What is that mind that was in him? What's the thoughts and the reason of the Most High Yah, the Father, the Logos. But when you don't study this concept of the Logos outside the Bible, then you're not going to understand what's going on. Jesus Christ did not pre-exist. So after I did that debate, there was a lot of controversy behind that debate because I brought out a lot of information as an Israelite saying I don't subscribe to pre-existence. So that debate, there was an after discussion, and then there were several rooms made after that debate for at least a week where people was having discussion. And it's like, what is the stuff Divine's talking about in regards to the Logos, blah, blah, blah. So people started going to Phaulos' works. They started going to some patristic sources. They started going to some Greek sources and started to learn what this idea of the Logos is. If a Greek or a Hellenized Jew, because John 1 was written in Greek, was to hear the term Logos and see it personified as a he, because that's what Christians will go to. Oh, it's called the he. So therefore, well, Chokmah is called a she, and Chokmah says that she was there in the beginning with Yod Heh Wav Heh. So what we got? We got Yod Heh Wav Heh. They got Chokmah, which is a person, and Jesus, who's a person. How are we dealing with this? How's that going to work? Yah has no partners. I'm going to get into the text in a second because this is something I shared with the brother. I'm going to get into this real quick. It's getting deep. So some of the brothers started talking about it from the camps and like, oh, okay, yeah, this got to look into this further, blah, blah. Shout out to my brother Yoel of Sons of Thunder. Shout out to my brother Gorilla Hebrew. It's my brother. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Sakari. Those are my brothers. Every time I see those brothers, they show me love. They show respect. Every time I see them, I show them love, show them respect. All right? Now, we may not agree on everything, but it has nothing to do with the brotherhood I have with them. All right? So with that being said, we have this conversation. I'm talking to Joel about the Trinity because he despises the doctrine of the Trinity. So do I. And we have a conversation about that. And then other brothers come to me and start asking me about what I shared in the debate, asking me questions and stuff like that. Then we have a conversation about that. So after that conversation, at some point, everything comes full circle. Apparently, the brother Yoel, or Yoel from Sons of Thunder, he put out a video with a slide deck on his Patreon in regards to John 1:1 and says that it does not teach the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. When the brother did that, the brother Ariala from Sakari took offense to that. And from there, word got back to Gorilla Hebrew, word got back to Sakari camp, and gave him the green light to go and his response to Yoel's position. Yoel created a 70-page paper in regards to his position on this, and he took a whole bunch of sources into account that most Israelites don't do when they do this research, right? Stuff that I've been doing for over 10 years, over a decade. And he did a whole presentation on it. So he was hitting me up before he did that presentation. I'm very busy, so it's kind of hard to get to me. But he kept asking me, hey, Divine, I got to reach out to you. Some question I got to ask you. Hey, Divine, we got to talk about something. And I really never, and I regret it not having the availability to actually sit down and talk with him before he did this, right? But he did it anyway. So I recently had a conversation with him. But at this point now, this is a big conversation in the Israelite community now, right? Did Jesus Christ pre-exist? So me and the brother had a conversation recently. I spoke with him, and I do want to reach out to Gorilla Hebrew and have a talk with him as well about this. But we had to talk about it, and I told him, I said, yo, brother, I tip my hat off to you for taking that position. I realized that, among camp doctrine, that some of the elders taught the pre-existence of Yahushua, and a lot of younger camp brothers have taken on that doctrine, that dogma, and they've embraced it, right? And what they do is they use very similar passages that Trinitarians use to prove the pre-existence of Jesus Christ. So they are, unbeknownst to them, binitarians using Trinitarian doctrine to support a dogma that hasn't been critically analyzed within the ranks of our community. I always stand out in this community because it's things that I teach, things that I share and disseminate into the community that brothers have never seen, never heard of before. It's not that the information is new, it's just that it's new to them, right? And I do it so that brothers can think critically. Our statement here is death to dogma. That's how we get down. Death to dogma, right? Whatever the dogma is, got to die. And these things have to be critically analyzed, put into peer review in order for us to determine what the outcome should be, right? The preponderance of evidence is going to decide where we lean on, right? So I had a conversation with the brother, and we went over a couple of things, right? And I'm going to share one or two things with y'all real quick. The first thing we got to deal with is, did Jesus Christ pre-exist? No. Jesus Christ was a name given. Luke chapter 1, Matthew chapter, it was a name that was given to flesh, not a second person, not a ontological entity sitting beside the Father, not a God sitting next to the God, not two persons sharing the same homoousia, same essence. It's not in there. So either you have a conundrum. Either you're teaching binitarianism in two ways. Number one, you're teaching that there are two powers in heaven. It's a great book called Two Powers in Heaven. I put it on the Patreon. You believe there are two separate powers in heaven that don't share the same substance. One is a God, one is the God. And the God tells a God what to do. So he's the agent for the God. So some of you believe that, or you believe that there are two distinct persons that share the same essence called Yahweh. One God, but manifested in two persons, revealed in two persons, exegeted by two persons. And the one person comes into flesh and he exegetes the other person to everybody else, as we see in the book of John chapter 1. Right? So the question is, and I ask this question all the time, show me a Christophany where Jesus Christ created the world. Show me that Christophany. Is it in Genesis chapter 1? The text says Elohim. They'll say, oh, the text says, let us make man in our image and after after our image and after our likeness. Let us make man. Oh, that us there is talking about another person with the Father. And I show them that that's a dated interpretation. Where the consensus is now, especially with Christian apologists, Christian scholars, is that that's the divine counsel. How do we know that? Job chapter 38, verse 7. While the Most High was laying the groundwork and the foundation for the earth, the sons of God was there, singing them praise. The audience was there. So that type of language, let us make man, goes back to what was called the intensified plural or the majestic plural. How do we identify the majestic plural? Well, in the Hebrew, you have person, number, and gender. Person, first, second, third. Number, singular, dual, or plural, and gender, masculine, feminine. There's no neuter in the Hebrew. Okay? When you are looking at perfect syntax of Hebrew, when you have a nominative or the noun, the main noun, and it has a feature set of masculine for the gender, singular for the person, masculine, singular, so person, gender, and number. So singular is number, person, in this case, could be first, second, or third person, right? Let's say it's third person, whatever, right? So third person, singular, so singular, third person. In this case, I'm gonna use the example from Genesis 1. So when you have a plural noun, you have a masculine gender, and you have a third person. Third person, plural, masculine. The verb that follows it must share the same properties. The verb must be in the plural form, the verb must be masculine, and the verb must also have the same gender, number, and person. When you have a situation where the noun is plural and the verb is singular, that's not perfect Hebrew grammar. So it is something that is stylistic and literary in nature, because in colloquial Hebrew, that would be incorrect to say. So you have a feature set that over time has been discovered to be a majestic plural, which is a feature of Semitic languages. You see the same thing in the Quran. The Quran, Allah says we. That's the majestic plural. But Allah says he has no partners. It's only him. So that is the pluralized or the plural of majesty, or the intensive plural. So we identified in the book of Genesis chapter 1. It's all throughout there. So now when the us is mentioned, the us doesn't mean it's 2 or 3 persons. That is God. When he says, let us make man in our image after our likeness, it's because of the majestic plural form being used there. And not only that, it's the audience that's there. When Yah says in the heavenly court, who will go for us? Who will go for us? Is that 3 persons that's sitting there on that throne in Isaiah chapter 6? When he says, who will go for us? Let me pull up Isaiah 6 real quick. Is that 3 persons there? Somebody says, do I read comments, antifreeze? Yes, I do. But I'm sharing something right now. So in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Right? Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. That's when we get the who will go for us. Adonai, Adonai is a masculine singular. How do we know? Because we see Adonai. It Adonai Yosheb or Yosheb. It's the V sound because there's no dagesh. Al Kiseh. This word throne is interesting because we see it also, what's that, in Psalm 81 and 3. Ram, we Nisa, we Sulah, Meleim, because we have the Hirik and we have the Yod, Im, It, Ha, He. When you have this Zere Yod, you have the Kol. So what are we talking about? We're looking at this word here, the Lord. That's singular, masculine singular. That's not Elohim, plural. It's the Lord or master, Adonai. Okay. So we saw him high and set it up, but watch this. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. Seraphim is plural. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Verse 3. Do some more analytical work. Verse 3, we have Yahweh. or Yehava, right? It's a proper masculine singular noun. Again, singular noun. Elohim is not used here. Sebaot. Lo kol haaretz kebodo. Kebodo. Right? So Yahweh is in the singular. So Lord is singular, Yahweh is singular. And the foundation of the earth shook, blah, blah, woe is me, man unclean lips. Go to verse 8. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who shall I send and who will go for us? Is this the three persons? Is the pre-existent Jesus Christ sitting there with the Father? Is this what Isaiah saw? Then I said, here I am, send me. And he said, go and say to this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, do not perceive. Make the heart of the people of this people dull and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. Who will go for us? Well, we see the seraphim is in this company, and we see that Yahweh is mentioned in the singular. He's called the Lord Adonai, and he's called Yahweh in the singular. There's no two persons there. He says, who will go for us? Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Right? We see this also mentioned in the let us make man, but it is also in Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, it says in verse 22, then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. Now, is he talking, when he says the man's become like one of us, is he talking about him and the pre-existent son, Jesus Christ? And the man has become like one of us? No. The key to understanding this is right here. Actually, the serpent is the key to understanding this. Verse 4 says, but the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. How do we discern this? Let's take a look at the grammar, right? I'll show you something in the grammar. Let me use verse 5. That's what I meant, not 4. So in verse 5, it says, Ki yoda'a Elohim ki beyom akha lechem mim menu venikhehu enechem v'yektem kelohim yodei tov wara. What are you saying, Divine? This is the first thing I'm going to show you. When we see ki yodea, this yodea is a verb that is acting as a noun. It's a participle. Participles is interesting because they have a lot of distinct features and they have a wide feature set, so they can act in different ways. But typically, it is a verb that acts as an adjective or acts as a noun, right? So it's a knowing of something. For Elohim knows. However, this root word is yada. This word yada, meaning to know, is in the masculine singular. Remember, I told you, when we're looking at agreement between noun and verb, if it is proper grammar, you'll have a pluralized verb with a pluralized noun. In this case, because it says, for God knows, God is in the masculine plural, Elohim, but the participle, the kal verb participle, is in the singular, which means when he's saying, for God knows, he's referring to Yod He Wav He. Keep this in mind. However, as he transverses through the rest of the clauses, what would God know? Pluralized Elohim know, and the Elohim knowing that we see mentioned in Genesis 1 is going to be shown here to be Yod He Wav He. In the day that you eat it, your eyes will be open. Your second masculine plural. You know what's interesting here? People don't realize that Adam was there too. When the serpent is speaking to Eve, he's speaking in the plural, you. Adam was around somewhere. And we'll see this when the text says, And the man who was with her, he ate too. He was with her. So when he is speaking in Nechem, he is speaking in the second person masculine plural. You all. That's how I interpret it in English. You all, or you both. He's talking about them. Your eyes will be opened. But watch this. In the last two clauses, he says, very interesting, with yiktem, and you will be, second person masculine plural, like God, Kelohim. You will be like gods, but the God here is in the masculine plural. But look what he uses. He says, Yod de'eh, Yod de'eh, Yod de'eh. What does that mean? That is similar to Yod de'ah, but you can see that the suffix is different. In one suffix, we have the ayin, and we have the patach underneath it. But in the second one, we have a zere and a yod that follows. Knowing, we have another verb, a cal verb, in the participle form. But this participle form is different because it is a masculine plural construct. Well, what do you mean by that, Divine? That means it relies or is related to a particular noun. Well, which noun is it related to? Well, the noun that this one relates to is the pluralized Elohim. This is proper Hebrew grammar. So when he says that God knows, the first part, he is referring to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Why? Because he's utilizing the majestic plural to identify him. But in the latter part, when he says you will be like God, no, it should be like gods, plural, knowing, because that participle, which is a cow stem verb, turn into a participle, so still has features of a verb, so has features of an adjective or noun. It lines up grammatically with the previous noun, which is Elohim. So when he's saying that you will be like gods, knowing good and evil, well, the gods knew good and evil. This is not the same pluralized, the majesty of plural that's used in the first part, referring to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. This is referring to other gods that exist. So this is inclusive of Yahweh, other powers. So when you see Genesis 3:5, and then you go down from Genesis 3:5, and you scroll all the way down, and you go back here, Genesis, well, I don't know what it took me to chapter 1. Genesis 3:5, and you go down to Genesis 3, chapter 22. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. Remember the knowing good and evil? You go back up to verse 5. Knowing good and evil. It's referring to, this right here is a bad translation. It should be gods. This is okay as God singular, right? Majestic plural. But here, this is referring to God's plural, knowing good and evil. So when Yahweh is speaking, he is speaking not to himself and the other two persons, because that would be the same Yahweh, but he's speaking to an audience. It says the man has become like one of us. And one of those entities that's part of that audience is a cherubim that was then commanded to go and guard the tree of life from the Garden of Eden. Because he then says, now lest he reach out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat forever. So as a result of that, he takes one of the cherubim and puts him there to guard. Just like we see the seraphim in Isaiah chapter 6, when he says, who will go for us? This is deep. I know it's deep. But we have the linguistic clues here that we can see this. What other gods existed in the Adamic period? All the gods that was created. All the gods that were created. Those are the gods that we see. All the gods that was created. So if you want to know about the divine council, the Bene Elohim or Bene Ha Elohim, if you want to know about the divine council, I have a post on Patreon where I tell you all the members in scripture. I ain't gonna say it's all the members, because it has to be compared against the Ugaritic text that actually lists out all the bunch of deities, right? We don't have that same listing here in the Tanakh. The Tanakh doesn't have a list that says this is all the gods that exist. But you do have that in Ugaritic text in the tablets there. But we can go through various passages in Tanakh and we can draw out the various Bnei Elohim, the various sons of God. Okay. Now we see them called the Watchers, the ones mentioned in Isaiah in Genesis 6 by Enoch. But here, what I'm trying to show you is that this is not Yahweh referring to himself. This is Yahweh referring to other Elohim, other powers. No, it was not the Anunnaki. This is not the Anunnaki. However, there is a overlapping of figures from the Anunnaki pantheon, and that's only because of the Babylonian gods mentioned in Tanakh. These are not Levantine deities. These are all Mesopotamian deities. And what happens is that the Anunnaki is landlocked. The Anunnaki is landlocked. So if the Anunnaki is landlocked, that means being able to set up shop for them in the Levantine region doesn't come until you have empires moving into the Levantine region and taking over the Levantine region. That's when these concepts become understood by those Bedouin tribes in Canaan and those non-Bedouin tribes in Canaan. So when we see this is not talking about that. The last point I want to make is that people say, oh, yeah, well, Yeshua was he was a agent in the creation. So in my conversation with the brother, I told him, I said, look, if Yahweh is an agent in creation, this is how we're able to identify that, right? In the text, this is important. In the text, we have something called the Hephil stem or the Hiphil stem. Hephil, different ways to say it. This is the causative stem. What this means is that the nominative or the main subject who's speaking is not the direct actor for the verb in which he's speaking. He is causing the verb to happen by means of an agent. So when we see things like, let me give you an example, Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. And it says, and the Lord will scatter you among all peoples from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. When it says that he will scatter you, this is written in the Hephil stem. This is important. It says, Wehe Pisecha. And this is, and he will scatter you, second person masculine singular, third person masculine singular, and he will scatter you. That's how we translate in English, but it should be, and he will cause you to be scattered. Because Yahweh does not directly scatter Israel, he uses agents to scatter him. He used for the northern tribes, the Assyrian kings. For the southern tribes, he used the Babylonians. And to punish the Babylonians for the oppression of the southern tribes, he uses his Mashiach, Cyrus, in Isaiah chapter 45. So if Yahweh is using an agent to create the known world, the known universe, then if he is saying that he has created everything, then he should be speaking using the causative stem. Because Yahweh the Father, if he's using the Son, he is not directly doing the action. We should also see a direct object marker following the verb to the accusative, or the object being the earth, if he is actually doing the action himself. We all see that. If we see the et there, then he is not direct. Then he is not using an agent to do the work. So the language betrays anybody that says that Jesus was used as the agent to create the world. That's problematic because it does not align with the language of the Tanakh. The Tanakh does not use the he for. For example, let's go to Isaiah chapter 44. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Isaiah chapter 44. I don't think the screen is sharing. Hold on one second. Isaiah chapter 44. And this is what he says. Verse 24. Thus says the Lord, Yahweh, your Redeemer, who formed you from your womb. I am the Lord who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself. Let's go into that. Koch Amar Yahweh Go'al Lecha We Yosercha Nib Batin Anochi Yahweh Ose Kol Note Shamayim Levadi Roka Haaretz Mit Me'iti. Right? Me'iti. He says, thus says Yahweh. Yahweh is in a masculine singular. Your Redeemer. This is a Kal verb participle. So a verb that is using is in an adjectival form. And he who formed you, this is he who formed you. The he is the second person masculine singular from the womb. He who formed you, masculine singular construct. He, you, second person masculine singular from the womb. Anochi, I am, first person common singular, Yahweh, who makes all things, who stretches out the heavens alone. Levadi. Levadi. I stretch out the heavens alone by myself. Nobody's helping me. Here's the inseparable lamed. Preposition, inseparable preposition, the lamed. He says he does it alone, but when he says he's doing these actions, he's using the verb cow stem, Verb cow stem, meaning that he is performing the action, singular. He's not using the he fell stem, which would indicate he's using an agent or a partner to do the work for him. He's saying that he does it all by himself. But now we have a conundrum, because if you teach that Jesus created all things, people will go to New Testament passages and say, yeah, look, it was Jesus who did all of that. He did it as the second person of the Godhead, which just means deity. Second person of the triune God. He did it on behalf of Yahweh. That person did it on behalf of Yahweh. And then they will go to places like John chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, Colossians chapter 1, verse 16. But in Colossians chapter 1, verse 16, the text says, for in him all things were created. But what was in him? The Logos. The Logos is the creative and communicative instrument of Yahweh. It's his thoughts and his reasons manifested in a form. It's not a second person. That Logos is then using the flesh to do things. Christ doesn't get the credit for those creations. That credit goes from what was in him. For in him all things were created. All things were created through him and for him. If it's being done through him, then he is not the direct vessel for that action. He is being used to perform that action. The Logos in him. And we see the Logos incarnated into the flesh. The Logos wasn't a separate person distinct from the Father. The Logos was the Father's reason, his plan, his purpose, his mind, his instrument, and how he interfaces with the creation. That is all the Father. And he puts that Logos in the Son. Very similarly to what we see in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, let's go to Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. On many past occasions, in many different ways, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets. You see that? But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his son. How? By way of his logos. The son is exegeting the mind of the Father, exegeting the thought and the reason of the Father, exegeting the essence of the Father. It's coming through him. And the Tanakh, there's no stem when Yah's talking about that he's creating everything. There's no agent that he's using to do so. So you can't say that he's the agent. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 10. This is not Yahweh saying this. This is the prophet saying this. He has made the earth by his power, singular. The he has made is the kal verb, simple action. Simple active action. He has made. Now he caused it to be made by his power, meaning he would use an agent to do it. He did it. But then he went and he said in the next clause, he has established the world by his wisdom. Mekin. Now this is in the causative. But he made the earth by his power directly. But then he established the world by his wisdom. He caused it to be established by his wisdom. We see this in Proverbs chapter 8. The proverbial verses that you see in Proverbs 8 would have been known to Jeremiah, would have been known to all the Jews by this time, because they would have been written before he came on the scene. He caused the world, he caused the world to be established by his wisdom. He caused it to be established by his wisdom. So someone said, oh yeah, wisdom is Christ. Because it says the wisdom of God is Christ. The wisdom as it pertains to things revealed in the New Testament, but not the same wisdom here that we see in Jeremiah 10:12, that we see in Proverbs 8, because this is in the feminine. Remember, the logos is in the masculine. Now you have a problem. Are you saying that Jesus, the pre-existent form, was a transgender? Was he a hermaphrodite? Are you working at this? And at his discretion has he stretched out the heavens. Just Jeremiah 10. So the only thing that's causative is the establishment of what he created by wisdom. Proverbs 3:19, the Lord founded the earth by wisdom and established the heavens by understanding. These things become set by his wisdom. He causes it to be set by his wisdom, his counsel, his knowledge. Isaiah 42:5. We're going to go to 45:15. And it says, Ko Amar Ha'al, right? Or Ha'el, Yahweh, Bore Hashamayim, We Notechem, Roka Haaretz, We She'esha Aha, Noten, Nasama La'am, Alecha, We Ruach, La Cholekim Ba. The key thing I'm looking at, it says, Ha'el Yahweh, the God Yahweh, Ha, which is a definite article, Ha'el Yahweh, the God Yahweh, the God. So now we're saying the God, definite article means something specific. The God Yahweh, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread forth the earth. These are all in the cow stem, meaning that he's the direct agent that causes action. He did not do it by means of another agent. He was the agent responsible himself doing all these actions. Then it says, that which comes from it, who gives breath to the people and to the spirit of those who walk on it. All of this right here, that comes from it. Who's the it? Who gives breath to the people on it and the spirit to those who walk on it. He's the one responsible for all of this. Not an agent. Not a second party. Isaiah chapter, what is that, 45? 45:12. He's saying, Anoki, I, first person common singular, have made. Asiti, I have made. Aretz, or Aretz, I have made the earth by myself. So when you're looking at Job chapter 38, verses 4 to 7, where Yahweh is forming the earth and putting the beams in place and putting the foundation and all of that, he's doing it by himself. And you see the audience of the Ben Elohim was watching it and applauded him. And man on it, I created. My hands. Yadai. My hands. Natu. Shamayim. Wekol. Sebaam. Siweti. He and their host. He did it by himself. No agent. No hypostem. No causative. So now you got to contend with the language of Tanakh if you're saying that Jesus was the agent that created all things. And John 1:1, let's go to John 1:1. Let's do that real quick because I'm going to bring it full circle. And I'm going to close. I said I was going to do an hour. I gave you a lot of additional time than that. Let's go to John 1. En arche, en hologos, ke hologos, en proston theon, ke theos, en hologos. In the beginning was the word. The beginning here is in the dative, and arche is in the dative, meaning that it's the indirect object and it's not the thing that we should be focused on in regards to the noun. In the beginning, it just plays a role secondary to the hologos. Ho or och is your article, logos is your nominative noun. The suffix os indicates it is the lexeme form. The lexeme form is a form of the noun that you will find in a dictionary of that word. In arche ben hologos, right? So the definite article is the word. So the word is the subject in the first clause. In the beginning was the word, the logos. But what is that word? What is that logos? And why is it taking center stage in the first clause? Because remember, the narrative is talking about Jesus, Yahushua, Yeshua, not the Father. And it says, Ke hologos en prostonteon. And the word, this is the word, again, borrowing from the first clause, and the word was with God. Theon. God there becomes the accusative. It becomes the receiver of the with, the proston, because the logos was face to face with Theon. The Father's like this with his hand. The hand represents his thoughts, his word, his mind, his reason, his communicative, and his creative actions. It's all happening through his hand. That's the word. As we see in Genesis, he spoke it and it was done. That's his logos expressed. He wants this to happen in his mind. He expresses it and it comes to be. So the word here is in the article. The article, it does precede the word. The word, again, becomes a focal point. Was with Ton Theon, was with God. Okay? Word is still the focal point, right? However, in that third clause, we get something different. Because the accusative article, Ton Theon, this is the accusative article, whereas ho is the article for the nominative, meaning this is the focal point. Now you get to a conundrum in the third clause. Ke theos ein hologos. Now we have a situation where there is no accusative article before theos. However, there is one here for the word. There's an article there for the word. So there's an article there. So in Greek, and again, I have a great book over here. Which book is that? It is this one right here. Is it this one right here? Let me see if this is the one. Is this it? No, it's not this one. Oh, I know which one it is. Not that. It's this one right here. Yeah, knocking things down. All right. Let me show you real quick. This book right here. Now, this book right here gives the Christian case for the word being a distinct person, is what they argue for, from theos, which means God, because you'll have situations where you'll have like Bibles, like the New World Translation, NWT, which is the Jehovah's Witness Bible, and that says, "And God, and the Word was a God," right? That's what it says. So the text here literally says, "Ke theos ein ho logos." So now what happens is theon becomes theos. That means God is no longer the accusative. He is now the nominative in the last clause. Ke theos ein or ein ho logos. Now he is a nominative, and the article is there for the word. So some translate this as, "And the word was God." No, it should read exactly what it says in the Greek, "And God was the word." If you identify God here as the Father and the Word as Jesus, the text is teaching here, "And God was the Word." Literally, that's what it says. But there are other ways in which they see that. If you go into this book here on page, what's this page? Is this page 2? Let me see. This is what I'm looking for. No, this is, I think it's chapter 3. Yes. So in this book here, hold on. Let me bring it up here so you can see. See that? Dealing with the nominative case, because now we have two nominatives in the last clause, which means two major subjects are in the last clause. Whereas in the first clause, the only main subject we had was the word. Second clause, the main subject was the word, whereas theon was the accusative. But now the text switches to the nominative case for God, and it still has a nominative case for the word. So it's showing a relationship, which means neither one of them is subordinate to the other. So the text should be read. And again, the reason why you have the article before logos is because that is still the focal point of John 1:1, which is the word. That's why it maintains the article. However, now it's showing a different type of relationship than what we see in a second clause, where the word becomes the major subject and it was with God. God is the accusative. So it's the recipient of the action of the word facing the deity, right? Or facing the theon, which is an accusative. Theon is an accusative. But now the theon becomes theos, it becomes a nominative. It also becomes a main subject now in the final clause. And what the text is telling you, "And God was the word." The Father was the word. So the Father was the word. And this is how Christians try to work it out, saying that the theos there is Yahweh, the essence, represented by the Father. The word is Yahweh the Son, but they're sharing the same essence. That's why it could be facing him and be the same thing at the same time, meaning the same substance. That's not what it should be shown here, because again, when you understand how logos is used by Philo, by Greek philosophers, they understand the logos to be someone or something's mind, their thoughts, their reason. It is a part of them. It is not separate and distinct from them. It is a part of them. What I'm saying to you right now is my logos. My logos is with me, because when I'm speaking, gets front center stage about me. It's my words that I'm saying to you. Unless somebody out there is attracted to my looks, you're focusing on the words that I'm saying. So that becomes the article. That becomes the whole logos, because I'm expressing my mind, my reason, my thoughts to you. So that becomes center stage, right? In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God. The word was pros, was facing towards, motion towards God. And God was the Word. That Word is his instrument. It is manifest in his thoughts, his reason, his mind. It is an oracle of his. It's an extension of him. It's not separate and distinct from him. But when you read this, it goes into addressing this idea of two nominatives in the third clause. So it says, the nominative case is used most frequently to designate the subject of the verb. There are, however, several other functions of the nominative case. Here are some of the key uses. It could be the subject of the finite verb, the father, ho pater, loves the son in John 3:35. The predicate nominative expresses a characteristic or state of the subject with the copulative verb. The life was the light of men, John 1:4. Apposition, and this is the position that is taken by the author of this text, grammatically independent and often used in greetings. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all, 2 Thessalonians 3:18. An address used instead of a vocative. Husbands, love your wives. Most verbs take a direct object in the accusative case. With a predicate nominative, however, both the subject and the predicate nominative are in the nominative case. So what they're saying is that you can have a verb act as a predicate, which is the replacement for the verb. A noun act as a predicate and replacement of the verb and an accusative, right? Because the accusative verbs typically show up with an accusative because the accusative is the object that is receiving the action being performed on. But it says in certain cases, the nominative can be that predicate form. It can stand in place of the verb and the accusative. So they're making this case, as you can see, if you read this, they're making this case for apposition, I think, or a predicate verb. One of them, I forgot which one. Predicate nominative is one of them. But let me get into it real quick. On the last page, I'm gonna finish reading this, get to the last page to show you what they're referring to, and I'm gonna try to simplify it afterwards. So it says such constructions contain a stated or implied usage of an equitative verb, such as emi. A predicative nominative provides further information about the subject and may be virtually equivalent to the subject. But if both the subject and the predicate nominative are in the nominative case, how do we determine which is the subject? So in the last clause, in God was the Word, which they typically, when they're looking at this, when they're analyzing this in their translations, they reverse it and says, and the Word was God, instead of saying God was the Word. When you flip it like that, a whole different sense being equated because it agrees with the doctrine of the Trinity. It agrees with this notion of pre-existence. So it goes on to say, how do we determine which is the subject? Dan Wallace offers the following guidelines. If there is a pronoun, whether stated or embedded in the verb, it is the subject. If one of the nominatives is articular, it is the subject. So let's go back to this real quick, and I want to see if y'all can get it, because I said it already, but make sure you can get it. And it's the last clause, ke theos ein hologos. Which one is the articular nominative? Because they're saying whatever one is the articular nominative, that is the subject. This is what Dan Wallace is saying. So when we're looking at this, what is the articular nominative? Well, it's the one that has an article that precedes it. In this case, ho, logos. Ho is the article. Logos is the nominative. So what they're saying is, if you see a clause that has two nominatives, if one of these have a article preceding it, it is the subject of this clause. So that means they'll say, and the Word was God. That's why they place it that way. But the Greek does not read that way. The Greek reads, ke theos ein hologos. And God was the Word. That's how I see it. And that's how it would have been understood for those who understand the concept of the logos without this Christian Orthodox theology superimposed onto the text. But he has to work it out this way because that method of interpretation is not consistent in Koine Greek works outside the Bible. It's not consistent. And he says, if one of the nominatives is a proper name, it is the subject. So in this case, we don't have a proper name, so that does not apply. And in this case, there is no pronoun used in here at all. So that doesn't apply. So what he's saying is if one of the nominatives is articular, it is the subject. So because logos has the article ho, that becomes a subject, which can make sense in certain cases. But I say it is the subject, not in the sense that we should translate it as and the word was God, but it's the subject because it is the focal point that is introduced in the first clause. In arche en hologos. The article follows logos and the first, second, and third clause because it is the main subject. However, because it's the main subject, it is because it's by nature the main subject because of the narrative. It's talking about Yeshua. This is not John chapter 1. It's not talking about the Father. That's why the word is the subject. But it is the Father's thoughts, his reason, his communicative instrument for creation, to be an oracle, etc. God was the word. I still say the word is still the main subject, but God's relationship to his word is that's him. That's not the Son. That is the Father. The Father is his word. But we're talking about the word first because we're showing its relationship to Jesus as we transgress during the rest of the passage. So that's important. So John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning was the word. So if I was translating it to align with the concept of the logos in a plethora of different Greek texts, that last clause, yes, where we get the word is the main subject because it's introduced as such because it has the article in the first two clauses, but it should be read the way it is written. And God was the word. When we identify God there as the Father was the word. So either you're going to be a modalist, and the modalists believe that God, the Father, is Jesus the Son, and there's no difference. If you see that word as a distinct person, whether it's a manifested person of Yahweh, right? Or if it's a separate and distinct person that is not the Father, but from the same substance of the Father. Or you interpret it the way it would have historically been understood, that the word that's being used here as the main subject, it's the Father's. The Father was the word. Because that's the case. The Father was the word. And the reason why we see certain instances where like Jehovah's Witnesses were translated and the word was a God, right? They're saying the word was a God. They're using that article that you see that precedes the word logos as an indefinite article. So meaning that they're playing with the article because the article could be indefinite, it could be definite. Typically, it's definite article. That's how it should be translated. But they translate it as an indefinite article. And the word was a God. That's how they translate it. Excuse me. And the word was a God. They translate the nominative without the definite article as an indefinite article. My apologies. Meaning that when you see God that's used there and it's a nominative, to make it distinct with the logos, when the logos has an article for the word, they'll say, look, then that means that God, which is a nominative, should have the indefinite article. And God and the word was a God. That's how they translate it. Instead of and the word was God, the way that Christian Bibles translate it, or the way that I translate it, the way it's written in the Greek, and God was the word, because the Father is his word. The word is an extension of the Father. The word is a manifestation of his mind, his thoughts, his character, his reason, his logic. And oh, by the way, this is the name of the book, if y'all are interested. I have this on the Patreon, Exegetical Gems from Biblical Hebrew. It's on the Patreon if you want to read it from my library. Sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Thank you, Mama Rika, for sharing that. Now, I'm going to get to John 1 and 3, and then I got to close out. I got 6 minutes to close out. All right? Let's go to John 1 and 3 real quick, because the brother asked about that. So I'm going to go there and show it. So John, I don't know why this didn't change. What's going on? John. And when I'm teaching this, like, for example, we have our classes that I suspended, but I'm gonna reinstate the classes. We use Genesis 1 and 1. And those classes, where I was slow, I took my time and went through it. Now I'm rushing through it. And I know some people here don't even know the Greek, so it may be a little difficult to follow what I'm saying. But when we do our classes, I have to elucidate the words that I use. I have to slow down, and I have to say in a format or manner in which the students can receive it, because I'm assuming that they don't know anything. Here, I assume y'all know everything, so you can follow what I'm saying. But to sum this up, when we look at John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word. The beginning is the indirect object, is in the dated form. That means it plays a secondary role, and it's just the stage for the main subject, which is the word, the article, which precedes the word, which is ho logos. So ho should be translated as the definite article, the word. That's the first clause. The clauses are delineated by this little comma here. This little comma indicates that this is one clause. And then what comes after it is the next clause. And then what comes after that is the last clause. So when you go to interlinear, anytime you see these commas, that it delineates the clauses from one another. The second clause is kai, or k, it's really k. Ke ho logos ein prostontheon. And the word, this is again, and conjunction, the word, the article still following logos, was pros, facing towards ton theon. Now, theon, the father, is in the accusative. He's the object of whatever the word is doing, right? So the word is still playing center stage, and the father is the accusative secondary to the word, right? So he's a recipient of the motioning towards. So it's the word that's motioning towards the father, right? The father's receiving the motion that he's receiving the motion from the word, right? So it's a pros is a preposition that indicates motion or some kind of state or whatever, right? So that right there, theon is the accusative. Ton theon is the article for the accusative. So we know the father is directly in the accusative. There's no way around that, right? Again, this for still playing the main stage. However, now the father is given the nominative case. He is now part of the main subject, along with the word. And God was the word. The reason why the article is following the word, because the word is front and center in regards to the narrative, not the father. But they still want to show you, convey to you, that the father is his word. He is the logos. So it's how can the logos face him and him being the logos? Well, the same way that my hand can face me. A great example of that, and I use it as a good example, a human example, is if I was a ventriloquist. I don't know what I was saying. If I was a ventriloquist, I was going to say tranquilist. If I was a ventriloquist and I had a hand puppet on my hand, what I do with that hand puppet, the hand puppet acts out everything that I want it to do because it's part of me. So what happens is I get hidden and you got my hand puppet that's here, it's talking, right? It's my words. And you see the hand puppet speaking my words. You know it's my voice, but you don't see me, you see my word, because it's the subject in whatever stage play that we're doing. It's the hand puppet. But then at some point in the stage play, I appear. And now my hand as a puppet is facing me, and my words is talking to me, and I'm interacting with my word. This is still part of me. This is not a separate, distinct person. This is still me. Okay. I am now a subject, a nominative subject, along with the puppet, because the puppet is me. But because the puppet is what you saw the most of the play, it has front and center stage. But then I appear and say that this puppet is me. That's me. If I take it off, you see my hand. It's my words. That's me. I think that's the best way to describe what we see going on here, if that makes any sense. That puppet is a person. Oh, this is funny. So anyway, so that is how I would interpret it. John chapter 1 and verse 3. I'll jump down to verse 3. Panta di auton egeneto, ke choris autal egeneto, odegen ho gegonin. So all things through him, see that? All things through him came into being, and without him came into being not even one thing that has come into being. This cannot stand by itself because this him is in a genitive, masculine, third person singular. All things through him came into being. So now when we see this word him, from auto is the root, auto, which means it's in the genitive form. Genitive meaning the possessive form, right? All things came through him. What you mean through him? Let's go to verse 2. Hataus hein ein arche proston theon. He, Hataus. Now, this is the dative or the demonstrative pronoun. It's in a nominative masculine singular form. Hataus, right? He. Now, who's the he? The he is going to be the nominative that has the article, the word. So the he is the word. Now it's in a demonstrative pronoun form. And he was in the beginning. The beginning takes also the dative feminine singular. He was in the beginning, proston theon. Now the father is now going back into the accusative form. He was in the beginning with God. But when we go to verse 3, all things through him came into being. Now we have the genitive, all things through him. That word D or die that's used there, we get like the word like diametric, etc. Through. All things through him came into being. Now we have a different type of language being used here. Now we have figurative language because now we're getting pronoun attributes to the word. So now they're calling the logos of God a he. And without him, again, the him here follows the him here, right? They're not talking about the Father in regards to theon. When I say they're not talking about the Father in regards to theon, they're talking about his word, the Father's word, the logos, the thing that's motioning towards and facing the Father. The same way that the hand puppet that has my words is motioning towards and facing me, I'm moving the hand puppet. I'm staying still talking. I'm moving the hand puppet. The hand puppet is facing me, but that's my voice. I'm a ventriloquist. I'm speaking speaking on behalf of this hand puppet. My logos is now going to do things, interact with other hand puppets, pick things up, move things around. So all things that are being done on the stage is being done through my logos, through my hand puppet. And without him, the logos, egeneto, came into being not even one thing that came into being. The logos. Verse 4. In him, auto, again, we're dealing with the dative masculine third person singular. So that follows however you translate the third verse. And in him, life was, and the life was the light of men. Phoston and thropon, the light of men. Phus, ton, and thropon. So the light of men, again, is figurative language because men don't have physical light. But light represents something that's in men. And that light represents life. And the life was the light of men. So if you don't have the logos of the Father, then you don't have life. And you don't have light. That's why I mentioned earlier, it says, let your light so shine. What is the light that you have? Well, Jesus was still here. He wasn't gone when he said that. Yeshua was still here. Let your light so shine before men so that they may see your works. Let your good works, let your light so shine, good man, they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven, because he is the author. He is the main subject of the work that's being done through you, because that work that you're doing is a light that draws people back to life, which is the Father, his logos. What he did with the logos is, in times past, he put that logos on the prophets and used it to speak through them. That's why Peter says that when you speak, let us speak as the oracles of God. That is an excellent word. Let us speak as the oracles of God. Yeshua was set apart in the womb to be a specific oracle of the logos, to be a specific medium of the logos. But then he, that medium that had the Father's logos, had his own logos. My words are life. The logos has the logos. No, the logos is going through him, and the logos is working in that man to produce words out of that man. His own words, Yeshua's own words, but those words were taught to him by the Father. That's what he says in John chapter 5. The Father has taught me. The Father. So the logos in him from the Father teaches him to either speak on behalf of the Father or speak his own logos, which is in alignment with the Father. And without his word, there's no light in you. So the words that we speak, the logos that we speak either from the Father directly from the Tanakh, or we speak it from the Son's words that comes from the Father. He's the last prophet. In these latter days, he has spoken to us through his Son, who he have appointed heir of the worlds. The text says worlds. No, cosmos is not used there. It's ion, the ages. That's what it should say, not the worlds. Creator of the world. See, that's showing he's the creator. No, it's the ages. What ages? What age is he talking about? There's a messianic age that was created through him. So this is how, if I was going through this, through the language, parsing it out, how I would interpret it. Because this is not talking about Jesus as a pre-incarnate, pre-existent, second person. See, the second God distinct from the Father, or second person distinct from the Father who shares the same essence of the Father. That's not what this is teaching. And there's plenty of articles that's written on this that give that perspective outside of the Christian vantage point. These are agnostic, or these are atheistic scholars who don't care about the theology and only deals with the mechanical structure of the language in the text. And they would support what I'm saying to you, but it's only the Christian interpretation that has most of the material as it relates to this passage. It's the wealth of patristic sources that speak on this passage. They follow a traditionalist standpoint. When you're faced with scholars who care nothing about Christian dogma and only deal with the language and compare the text of the Bible with other Koine Greek texts, they don't translate it the way Christians translate it. So if I was to demonstrate this to somebody in debate, that's the angle I would go. I will go through the text, parse it out, interpret it. And once I interpret it, then I would translate, and how I would translate it and what's going on there. And then on top of that, I would show extra-biblical sources to showcase how John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18, the prologue, should be interpreted, because the prologue is an anthropomorphic personification of the Logos of the Father. It's not part of the narrative. It's using figurative language because it's trying to convey information, trying to show you why Yeshua was so important, because he bears the Logos of the Father. Not that he is a pre-existent Logos in flesh. It's the Logos of the Father that becomes flesh. And that Logos is responsible for the light that's in men, because the life of Yah is in Logos. How do we know? Because the Logos created life. In Genesis chapter 1, the Logos created life. When Yah spoke it, it happened. He brought forth life through his word. Okay. Let me back off for a second. Time to wrap this up. I got a little work to do. I'm probably going to be up for another 2 hours before I go to bed. Then I go get up for work in the morning at 8 o'clock. Nonetheless, I know this is a lot of information. Green Pastor Ministries. Okay. What I'm going to do for you, let me share this link for you right here. Trust me, I'm freestyling now, but I will simplify it later. I'll either do a academic blog post on my Patreon, or I'll do a video of it where I'm going to take my time going through each part, and then I'm going to show you my run through of it, my parsing, my interpretation, my translation of John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18. And then I'm going to give you extra biblical sources to corroborate what it is that I shared. Okay. Remember I said, if this is being written by a Jew that's using Greek to convey this concept to an audience who are Greek speakers, as a Jew, the way that he's positing this would be very similar to Hellenistic Jews that understand the concept of the Logos and is communicating it to a Greek-speaking audience. You'd have to go to Philos to understand how would a Jew who's entrenched in Hellenism and who understands and speaks Koine Greek, how does he understand the Logos from Greek contemporaries or Greek antitheses, Greek others? Once you understand how Philo looks at it. Now, again, it's not how the Greeks understand the concept, because the Logos could be a plethora of different things. It's how a Jew who speaks and understands Greek, how he would understand it, because that would be the thought form and the mind of a Jew who is using Greek to convey this concept. What he's doing is that he's taking elements of what Philo of Alexandria explains or exegetes of the Logos from his Torah-based understanding with his Hellenistic worldview, and the author of John is now putting a face to that Logos. It's the Father's, but now it goes in the flesh, and now Jesus is fused with the Logos of the Father. When we see in Revelation, it says it's written on his thigh, the Word of God. He's infused with the Father's Logos. Jesus becomes the hand puppet for that Logos. He says, the words that I speak to you are not mine, but as the Father's. He said that. They're the Father's. Okay. All right, link is in the chat. If somebody wants to jump on Green Pastures Ministries, if you want to jump on, I share the link in the chat. Yeah, so Gold Surfer, I didn't get to see that because I think it's on Sonetta's Patreon. I'm part of his Patreon, but I don't think I'm at the tier where I can see that content. But I would love to see it. I would love to see that at some point. I think Vocab may have spoken on it in one of his videos. I got to go back and check. But yeah. All right, so when there's personal language in the text, you'll argue it's personification. When there's figurative language in the text, this is a prologue. A prologue is a summary introduction of what you're about to read in a narrative. So if there's figurative language in the text, and it's talking about something that is incorporeal, like the Logos, and it's using anthropomorphic language to describe the Logos, and it used figurative phrases like the light of men and things along those lines, then I'm going to argue that the literary device being used is that of personification, very similar to what we see in Proverbs 8. Now, if this was part of the narrative, and this was being spoken of by Jesus or somebody in the narrative speaking about it, then it will be dealt with in a different fashion. All right. Now, I can argue this against my position, of course. So is there any evidence that can be put forward to prove the Logos is a person? Well, the evidence would be what I explained earlier. A Christian, an Orthodox Christian Trinitarian would argue, because we see the pronouns there, the genitive pronouns being used of the word, it is likely in the word to a person. That's what they were saying. They're not going to look at this as personification. They're going to dismiss that literary device and say that, no, it is literally identifying the Logos as a person, as a he. When you say he, that is a person. So that's how they would argue it. Yes, I'll be live this Friday after 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Y'all willing? No problem. But you said lean on atheists to deny Christ and affirm your teachings, right? No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not leaning on atheists to deny Christ because they deny Christ. I'm dealing with the mechanics of the language that have a Christian spin on it. This has been argued for thousands of years, at least 2,000 years, almost 2,000 years. This has been argued. So the majority voice would be the victors. You know, the ones that stamped out the Jewish Christians, the Ebionites, the Nazarenes, the people of the way. You know, those Christians were kind of persecuted, excommunicated, and killed off. You know, the ones that suppress, you know, the voices of those Jews who were with Jesus and the disciples. The ones who don't affirm the pre-existence of Christ. So when the collective body, the organ, what I call drone theology, is established, and as an egregore, a thought form is established through drone theology. Drone theology is when people assume a doctrine based on dogma because it is put forth as something that's incontrovertibly true. So what happens is the egregore, the thought form, is created by these Gentiles coming in, and they're infusing their ex-pagan beliefs and practices into the Messianic movement and generating a thought form. And then out of that thought form gives birth to some heretical thoughts and ideas that's identified by the second generation of church fathers who do the apologetic work. But now that thought form becomes so so large, it starts stamping out everything before it, which was the Jews who were believers in Yeshua and held to Torah. Torah does not teach pre-existence. Now, some of my Kabbalists, brothers and sisters, may disagree with that. That's fine. I'll just have to show them that Kabbalah and anything else related to Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism is a late iteration. Matter of fact, Christian Gnosticism and Sufism from Islam predate Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism draws from concepts from two of those other categories of ideologies. I share all this material on the Patreon. So I'm not using this to deny Christ. If that's the case, then I wouldn't be messianic. I'm just simply dealing with the mechanics of the language. And outside of mechanics of language, the idea of the Logos has an inherent understanding. You cannot constrain it to just the New Testament's interpretation of it. You have to see why and how the New Testament is using this construct called the Logos. And if you don't understand that construct from a Jew who's Hellenized, who's conveying it in Greek, then you're not going to understand why John is saying that this Logos, that's God, his thought, reason, his mind, is being expressed. How do we get that? Because the Logos exegetes the Father. It's the God, the power that exegetes the Father's words in his mind. You know he exegetes the Father's word in his mind because Jesus says that the words I speak to are not mine, but it's the Father's. He gives the Father credit for the words that he's speaking. So here, let me get in. John chapter 1. Just get John chapter 1. And let's go down to verse 18. It says, no man has seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in closer relationship with the Father, has made him known. This is all this additional verbiage in the NIV. All these words are not in the Greek. The NLT says, which is extremely liberal, says, no one has ever seen God, but the unique one who is himself God is near to the Father's heart. He has revealed God to us. The KJV says, no man have seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. Right? Now, when we go into the Greek text, it says, God, no one has seen, theon, odais, heoraken, pupote, menagenes, theos han on ais, ton kolpan, tau patros, ekanos, exegesato. So it says, the only begotten God. Now, this is interesting here. Monogenes theos. Second clause. The only begotten God. In some manuscripts, it says son. I think it's huios, if I'm not mistaken. In some manuscripts, it says theos. I think theos is the preferred reading because it's earlier. So the only begotten God, the one ho, the article, is the being in the bosom of the Father. He made him known. He exegeted him. He revealed him to people. And they're calling the Logos, right? You said the Logos. Well, actually, let's go back. I'm sorry, not the Logos. Let's go back. John chapter 1, verse 18. I'm going to go back for a second. Let me slow down. I'm going to read verse 17. This is talking about Jesus Christ. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God who was at the Father's side. He has made him known. Now, it's calling Jesus a God here, which is interesting. Jesus is the only God or the unique God. That's interesting, right? So there's two gods, but it's referring to Jesus in his fleshly form because the previous verse, well, actually, verse 14 starts talking about him in the flesh. See, the Logos is not called the Son until after verse 14 because he's in the flesh. So when we're interpreting verses 14 to 18, we have to maintain consistency. So when it says, and the word became flesh and dwelt in, when the Logos of the Father, when his extension, his Logos, transitioned into flesh and dwelt among us, we have seen his glory, glory of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Jesus is an apostle and high priest according to the book of Hebrews. He was sent and dispatched by the Father. Not the pre-existent Jesus, but the Jesus who was declared by the angels to his parents what he will do. He will be called the Son of God. He will be doing this and he will be doing that. So when the Logos of the Father incarnates into flesh, then that flesh is then called the Son. And it says, John bore witness about him and cried out, this was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me. Oh, right there. See, right there it says that he was pre-existent. No. He who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me. Mean he was before me. He was in the Logos, the plan, the thought, the reason of the Father for the Son to come into existence. This is why some lean on what's called the proto-evangelion, the first gospel, which they say is in Genesis chapter 3, and I think verse 15, where it says, it talks about the seed of the woman. Some call it the first gospel. That's a whole doctrine, the first gospel. But we know that if Jesus is the Messiah, which we see they call him that, right? If he's the Messiah, then the Messiah was already prophesied to come before John was even born. The prophecies all throughout the Tanakh and throughout the pseudepigraphal works and throughout the Apocrypha, etc. This does not mean that he existed before him. He was before me, talking about rank and preeminence, which is mentioned by Paul, the prototokos, the preeminent one. That's what we see in Colossians chapter 1. For from his fullness we all received grace upon grace. Who? From the Son, who's the Logos of the Father, is speaking through his reason. Everything is going through the Son. Then it says, for law was given through Moses, grace and truth through Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Son. We also have Matthew and Luke to prove this. No one has ever seen God. The only God, this monogenes means unique. The unique God, theos, if we use theos in the footnote F here, it says, or the only one who is God. And it says some manuscripts, the only Son, because there's textual variance there. No one has ever seen God, the only God, or the unique theos, the monogenes theos, who is at the Father's side, has made him known. How do we know he's at the Father's side? Not side to side with him as a partner in pre-existence, but when it says at the Father's side or his bosom, it's talking about his relationship with the Father. He tells the Jews, you don't know God. I do, like I do. I know God. You don't know him, because if you knew him, you wouldn't try to persecute me. That is showing that he is by the Father's side, or that he has a close relationship with the Father. The same way that the beloved disciple reclined into the bosom of Jesus, does that mean that because that beloved disciple who reclined into his bosom was a separate person, side by side, and of the same substance with Jesus? No, that's ridiculous. It's just talking about their intimacy, their relationship, the closeness that disciple had with Jesus. That's why he's called the beloved disciple. And some say it's John. This is how it's interpreted by patristic sources. It's John is the beloved disciple. He has exegeted him. Because in times past, every time the Father sent the prophet, they killed the prophets. They didn't want to receive the words of the prophets. In these last days, not just a prophet is coming, but somebody that's doing a work beyond what the prophets could have ever dreamed of. You see, the Christology that I have is high, but is limited by what the text says of it. Yeah, you talking about Anthony Buzzard? Sir Anthony Buzzard? He's a Unitarian. He don't subscribe to the pre-existence. He debated Michael Brown and James White. He's a Unitarian. So I've watched tons of his work as well, and he makes some good points in regards to his denial of the pre-existence. Yeah, exactly. Precisely. All right, so I'm gonna cut this off here. I'm gonna end it because I'll be here all night and I got stuff to do. It's almost 2 a.m. I'm gonna try to get some sleep. I know there's a lot of information, and I have to take my time and run through this with y'all again in a slower format. I rushed through a lot this time. You can rewind it, go back and listen to some stuff I get, make some notes. So the next time I do it and it's much slower, you'll be able to catch it. If you want any resources on this subject matter, they're all on Patreon. That's the best way you can support this channel. www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. Hopefully you guys like this session. I gave a good almost 2.5 hours of it. The purpose of it was to test out new audio and visual equipment that I have, new AV equipment to make sure that it's up to snuff for when we go live on Friday, when hopefully we'll have a discussion debate. And then I'll open up for QA if we have time towards the end. All right. I know some of you want to ask questions and stuff like that. I would say for this subject matter, hold those questions off until the time after Friday when I go live, because I'll give leeway during that time to ask questions. We can delve into this. I'll share a link. Anybody can join the stage. We can have a conversation about this. I have no problem with that. All right. Yes, the Son is the exegesis of the Father's, of his mind, thoughts, and will. I can do nothing of myself, but as I see the Father do, I myself do. Jesus can't do nothing of himself. The words that he speaks is not his. He was taught by the Father. These are all things that Jesus says himself. Jesus proclaims all these things himself. He says it. He tells you. He's not the source of anything. The Logos of the Father is, and that's what's in him. Jesus is not the Father. That's what modalists teach. That's the line that is drawn when I'm saying this. Modalists teach that Jesus is the Father. I don't teach that Jesus is the Father. Jesus is a man being led by the Logos of the Father. In John chapter 5, verse 19, Jesus says, so Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. You see that? He can't do nothing of the Father. Nothing apart from the Father. He's the Father is what gives him life to do all things. When you go to John chapter 5, he's talking about his judgment and what he says, his testimony is not true. When somebody comes in their own name, they'll believe it. You can't prove that the testimony is true, but Jesus does not come in his own might. He's born witness by John, by the Spirit, and by the Father. He is sent by the Father. The moment that one sends the other, the rank status is changed. One is subordinate to the other. The inferior is subordinate to the superior. The Father is superior. The Son has no existence outside of the Logos of the Father. The Logos of the Father gives life to the Son. The Logos of the Father gives purpose to the Son. And what the Son does, because he's been given the Logos of the Father, is to exegete or explain or reveal the mind, thoughts, and reason of the Father to his creation, to men. And what he's telling the Jews is that if you would have known my Father, then you would not persecute me. You would receive the words that I say to you. I come in my Father's authority, and you do not receive me. So he is the revelation of the Father's Logos. Yes. So in that lecture, part 4 of that video, I talk about the relationship between the Word, the Logos, and the Son. It says, before Abraham was, I am. The word there is ego amin, not ego amin hoon, which is what the Father actually says in a Septuagint in Exodus chapter 3. So he doesn't say, I am that I am. He says, I am. And what we teach is that when he is saying that I am, we see that in John chapter 4, verse 24, where he says, I am he. When she says, when the Messiah comes, he'll teach us all things. He says, ego amin there as well. I am. You are who? She says the Messiah. So you are the Messiah. She says, when the Messiah comes, she didn't say that the Father is the Messiah. She says, we know that when the Messiah comes, he will teach us all things. And Yeshua responds, ego eimi. I am, and then we have a bracket there, he. I am he. Saying that he's replying to what the woman is saying, her inquiry, that we know when this Messiah comes or the Christ comes, he will teach us all things. He says, I am he. When we get here to John chapter 8, we don't translate it as I am he. Before Abraham was, I am he. Why not? You are him. Who is the him? The one preferred before Abraham. The one in which Paul says that offspring is Christ. When he says, Abraham rejoiced to see my day, he saw it and was glad. All those verbs are in aorist tense, past tense. Simple active event or simple action or simple event that occurred sometime in the past. Now, because the aorist tense does not signify when that specific time was in the past, we'd have to use other pretexts to get the context. So if we're talking about Abraham, we have a record of Abraham in the Tanakh, and what's that? Genesis chapter 11, or I think at the end of Genesis chapter 10. No, Genesis 11. Sorry, Genesis 11, all the way to Genesis, what's that? Genesis 19, Genesis 20, all the way to Genesis 24, I believe, where we have Abraham. And when the Most High is telling Abraham about his seed would be like the sands of the sea. And then in you, whoever blesses you will be blessed, whoever curses you will be cursed. And we talk about his offspring. That word zerah is now translated or understood by Paul to be seed singular. He said he doesn't say seeds as in many, but seed as in one, and that seed is Christ. If that seed is Christ, and Yahweh was telling Abraham about his offspring and referring to his seed, not the immediate context, which would be Isaac, right, and Isaac's progeny, but Paul is now superimposing Christ onto that seed, which would explain when he says before Abraham was, I am, because that seed that the Father or Yahweh is telling Abraham was already in the plan, thought, and mind of the Father before Abraham was even born. And again, if some believe in the proto-evangelion, the first gospel, raised in Genesis 3, where it says, and the woman's seed will be at enmity with your seed. They be saying that seed was Christ. That's prophesied before Abraham was. So before Abraham was, he was what? He was already in the mind, thoughts, and the prospect of the Father. How do we know that? Because the lamb was slain before the foundation of the world. And you can't have a lamb that physically existed without a world, because the lamb is an earthly creature. So we're using typology to describe what Yah had in mind for the birth of his son, Yeshua, when he comes onto the scene. So he is preeminent over Abraham. Remember that conversation, they are deferring to Abraham because Abraham is great in their minds. Yeshua is diminishing the status of Abraham as he's showing that this Messiah, who he is preferred before Abraham, is greater than Abraham. Hopefully y'all get that. All right. Yes, that's the modalist perspective that teaches. And shalom to Sister Karima Poet. Shalom to my brother Get Wise in the building. I see you. Shalom to Israelites Defense. Mr. Jeshurun 144. I see you, brother. Yeah, it does. And the ESV says the begotten God as well. All right. So let me end off here because I can do another couple of hours of this. But fortunately, I do have to work, or fortunately, I do have to work. Depends on how you see it. Unfortunately, because I would rather do this than go to work. But fortunately, because I have a job, so that way I can feed my family and take care of the ministry. Right. So I'm going to go into this another time, and I'm going to break it down. But right now, there is a lot of talk about it in the Camp Israelite sector of the Israelite movement. And because I know a lot of those brothers, especially a lot of leaders and teachers, I'm more than happy to give my 2 cents on the subject matter whenever a panel discussion is brought up. Not only will I parse through the Greek and interpret and translate the Greek, I will also go to the mechanics of the language, and I will also show literary devices, and then I will also show the works of Philos and also the Greek philosophers who came up with this idea of logos and how it would have been understood by the Greek audience, and then show you how it's understood by a Jew who is Hellenized. And then what the New Testament author is doing is taking that lineage of understanding and ascribing the logos now to Christ, because it's the Father's logos and it's in the Son, it's in Yeshua, it's in Jesus Christ. Right? Thank you so much, Seth. I gave you a shout out the last time I was live, mentioning that you was working on the calendar for us. So all praise to the Most High. That should be available soon. I'm gonna go check out what you did already, brother. I'm confirm it, and then we'll be closer to releasing this calendar by the beginning of March. I would say should be done by Monday, no later than Monday. And then we'll have it on sale sometime next week, if all goes well. So all praises, all right? All right, so Yahweh Shai is God Almighty manifested in the flesh as his own servant. So now that's a modalist perspective. So you're taking a modalist perspective. Why is that so hard to accept? God was manifested in the flesh. Well, what makes that so hard to accept is that word God is not there in the earliest manuscripts. Let's take a look at it real quick. I'm going to do this real quick. All right, this is on Timothy. Let me pull it up. It's in Timothy. I'm going to show you this in Timothy. Show you what I'm talking about. All right. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. Remember, y'all, what a lot of our brothers and sisters do, unfortunately, is they ignore context. It's like Philippians chapter 2. The purpose of Philippians chapter 2 is talking about servitude. It's not an ontological passage telling you about the pre-existence of Jesus. The form Jesus exists in, that's in the present tense. The word for exist, not existed, that's a bad translation. It's in the present tense. He exists because as Paul speaks, the Son is in the form of God. He's in the outward expression of God, like he says in Colossians chapter 1. He is the image and likeness of the Father. He's representing the Father. But let's take a look at this. Great indeed, we confess, is the mystery of godliness. First thing I want to tell you is this word for godliness is the word for piety. 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 That's what this is talking about when we look up the word. That is the context. If I delay, you may know how one ought to behave in the household of God. Again, talking about an example of piety. This has nothing to do with ontology. Why do people always make an ontological argument? It's not. That's not the context of the text. Again, Christology in the Making by James Dunn. It's on the Patreon. Check it out. He was manifested in the flesh. Not God was manifested in the flesh. He was manifested in the flesh, vindicated by the Spirit, seen of angels, proclaimed among the nations, believed on in the world, taken up into glory. He. The Greek who, some manuscripts God, others which. The majority of manuscripts says he. That some manuscripts God comes later. Later manuscripts have an interpolation that says theos. But the original one says who was manifested in the flesh. Let me show you this. Let's go into the text. See that hos? A relative pronoun, a masculine singular noun. Who, meaning he, because it's in the masculine singular. Who or he who was. That's the best way. He who was revealed in the flesh. He was revealed in the flesh. The sarki. He was revealed in the flesh. That's the mystery of Eusebius. You know the church father Eusebius? This is where his name comes from. That literally means piety or devotion towards God. Pious, devout. I don't know how you're translating this godliness, but it should be piousness. That's how this should be translated, not godliness. Because anytime you see this word God, it's going to make you think, oh, this is the Father, this is Yahweh, this is. No, this is referring to piety, being pious. Great is the piousness or the pious mystery. Mysterion, the pious mystery. What you mean, the mystery of piousness? Yes, I'm going to show you the mystery of piousness. It was revealed in Yeshua. This is not the Father. He who was revealed in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed among the nations, who believed on in the world, and taken up into glory. The Father was never taken up into glory. Okay, it's interesting. You can go into netbible.org, also look at that footnote, and it's going to tell you the weight of the evidence. We call the preponderance of the evidence lies on the best translation for this should be the relative pronoun who or he who was revealed, not God. That come much later. Okay. All right, bro. Just trying to help you, brother. Not your enemy. Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? I hope not. Okay. So again, thank you, family, for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed this live stream. I'm going to make it unlisted and then eventually probably make it private. But I'm doing this just for those who are here today. That's helping me to assess the quality of the audio and video so we can be prepared for this upcoming Friday. Let me know if the audio is good before we close out. Let me know if the video is good, if there's no stuttering, if there's no drop frames, if there's no hitching, if there's no pixelation. Let me know how good the video is. Let me know how good the audio is. And let me know if they're in sync or out of sync. Hit 1 if the quality is good. Hit 2 if you observed issues during this broadcast. Hit 2 if you've seen issues. Hit 1 if everything was good. Let me get that for the rest of y'all that was here before I close out. This is our first 4K live stream broadcast. All praise to the Most High. Hopefully, I'll be able to do this even more. 4K is great, especially if you're watching this on your TV screen. It can fill every pixel, map every pixel with what the broadcast is showcasing. Well, not really, because I don't have it in widescreen format. I purposely use the option to shrink it like this so the focal point could be on what I'm saying and not really everything going on in the background. Some of my background could be very busy. But it's 4K nonetheless, so therefore it'll look crispy on your TV. Hopefully a lot of y'all watching this on your TV, on YouTube, on your TV. If you have Roku, you probably have to go through a browser and watch it, or you probably have to cast it and watch it. But if you have Roku, you can cast from your Android or your Apple phone to Roku, and it will show it in YouTube. Roku just don't have the native YouTube app. It was removed after they had beef with Google, right? That's why it's not there. The mic that I'm using is the Rode NT USB Mini mic, right? So that's the mic that I'm using right now, all right? The camera that I'm using is DJI Osmo Pocket 3, all right? And the streaming application I'm using is StreamYard. Hopefully that helps. Everybody said 1. Everybody said good. All right. Thank you so much, family. I appreciate it. If you want to support the ministry, sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect, or you can give donations to the ministry, as you see coming up on the screen or in the description below. Y'all know what we do as far as this ministry. We help the community. We help others that are in need. We do a plethora of work. If you want to partner with us and work in the ministry, you can click on the link below to sign up for KHM or see it in any previous video's description. We have tons of roles open. If anybody wants to work with us, whether that's volunteer work or if you want part-time work, we have all of that available for you. Just email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you want work, need work, or want to volunteer your services, your time, your skill to a ministry that is actually helping the community, being a think tank to socially engineer the community towards the direction of Yah without the dogma, so that way we can be prepared for his arrival. We are kingdom harbingers. We go forth and herald the coming of Yah but also prepare the people for his arrival. That's what we do. The people are not prepared. Our community is in disarray. Our community is following after the things of this world. Our community is not ready for Yah. They're not ready for that banquet. They do not know kingdom etiquette, and we're here to teach it to them by the power of the Most High Yah. So with that, family, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Yeah, so John, I would love to do that if they would love to chat with me. If you know anybody in particular that you can reach out to, or anybody on here for the record can reach out to have a camp brother that teaches his pre-existence doctrine, tell them I'm up for the challenge. Tell them I'm willing to chat with them, have an amicable discussion, or debate if they want to have a friendly debate, and we can iron this out. No problem. All right. So DJ, this is not an XLR mic. This is a USB mic. Typically, we know Rode for like professional studio quality equipment, but this is actually a mini USB mic. This is not an XLR mic. Now, I was thinking about setting up an XLR interface and getting an XLR mic because you have a ton of range, quality. You get higher arms, and peanuts is better. You know, everything is better, right? And a studio grade mic. But this is not a studio grade mic. And if you thought it was, you were deceived. But I'm glad it makes you think it is. I think by way of the manufacturer, some may perceive it to be one, but it's not. But if the quality is that good for live stream, I'll stick with it. But when I do my videos, I will not be using this. I'll be using a mic that I sync directly to the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. All right. Yes, they sure are. Hey, if you got the Shure is probably the best line that you can get in regards to quality grade mics. So all praises. All right. All right, family, get out of here, man. I love y'all a lot. I don't want to leave y'all, but I got to. I got bills to take care of. I got family to take care of. I got other ministry offline to take care of. I got work to take care of. So I'm going to go head on out, but I'm here to provide opportunities for those of you who are in need. Anybody that's interested in any opportunity that was discussed on here, any information shared on here. Again, if you want a part-time job, you know, we're offering work to people who want to help us, you know, do good in the community. You know what I'm saying? KHM is here for that platform, for the needs of the community. And when you donate to us, that's where the funds go to, helping the community, right? And you can go look at the litany of videos we have on this channel, and you will see that's exactly what we do, especially when we do the chapter launches. We set up our chapters, we get the work done. And we do it on the budget that we have based on donations from the community. Plus, I put in some as well from my own personal job. I donate to the ministry as well for my own personal job. You know what I'm saying? So this thing can be great, and it can reach the four corners of the earth. All right. All right. So with that being said, love you, family. Thank you for watching. I look forward to speaking to y'all soon. Again, we're gonna keep prayers up to Yah, so that way this debate on Enki is Yahweh can happen this Friday. Also, keep me in your prayers. Please keep me strengthened. I can take all the prayers and words of encouragement that I can get. And I'm here to pray for all of y'all and give you a word of encouragement like I did earlier in this broadcast. Hopefully that somebody benefited for that. And it can equip you in this lifelong journey that we call the way of Yah. All right. The old ancient paths that the prophets walked, that they were commanding us to do, that we are doing today. All right. So I give you all the credit, you know, my VIPs for making it this far in your walk. And you can go even further, but we have to do this walk together. It's not a one-man island. It's not a one-man show. This is a collective in order for us to move forward. And everything you'll put in the chat helps to build me up, helps to contribute and add to my knowledge and understanding. And I just repay you the favor. All right. So I love y'all. Thank you for watching. See you on the next live stream. Peace and shalom.